From Silicon Valley to the Spanish shore, fighting for freedom, but they want something more. 10 months in prison just for speaking his mind. Now they're coming back trying to leave him behind. 109 years for following the law. Most corrupt case that you ever saw. They can't silence the truth, they can't change what's right. Bitcoin Jesus showed us all how to stand up and fight. Free, free Roger Ver. Free Roger now. Hired the best lawyers, did everything right. Still they raided offices in the dead of night. Used his own compliance as evidence of guilt. Now his freedom hangs on the empire they build. Speaking truth to power comes with a price, but we won't let them sacrifice. Oh, they can't silence the truth, they can't change what's right. Bitcoin Jesus showed us all how to stand up and fight. Free Roger Ver. Free Roger now. When they come for one of us, they come for all. Either stand together now or watch freedom fall. They can't silence the truth, they can't change what's right. Bitcoin Jesus showed us all how to stand up and fight. Free Roger Ver. Free Roger now. They've been feeding us these lies since the day that we were born. That we need them to protect us, that we can't survive alone. But baby, that's a fallacy, a chain around my mind. Been blinded by while freedom's been denied. Oh, critical thinking broke these chains, opened up my eyes to see the game. No need for rulers telling me my worth. I'm taking back the power that is mine by birth. Yeah, this fallacious belief in their control truth has set me free at last. Government ain't nothing but a cycle, heading toward tyranny. They militarize the police force while preaching about democracy. But fuck that noise, I see the truth now. Their power's built on fear. Voluntary system shows another way is here, yeah, yeah. Critical thinking broke these chains, opened up my eyes to see the game. No need for rulers telling me my worth. I'm taking back the power that is mine by birth, yeah. This fallacious belief in their control has been weighing down my goddamn soul. But I'm free at last, free at last, breaking out of their system fast. No, no taxation, stealing what's mine. No coercion, crossing my line. I'm free at last, free at last. The truth has set me free at last. Free at last. This fallacious belief is gone. I'm finally free.
They wanna give him 109 for following the legal line. Bitcoin Jesus paid his dues, now they tryna make him lose. Free fear, can't silence the truth. Free fear, breaking their own rules. Free fear, from prison to Spain, now they're doing it again. First investor in the game, now they wanna kill his flame. Hired lawyers did it right, still they wanna pick a fight. Core devs changed the protocol. Government wants total control. Attorney-client privilege dead, using compliance plans instead, yeah. First investor in the game, now they wanna kill his flame. Hired lawyers did it right, still they wanna pick a fight. Core devs changed the protocol. Government wants total control. Attorney-client privilege dead, using compliance plans instead, yeah. Free fear. Free fear. Blockstream got the way back then. 1 meg blocks, remember when? Big blocks meant decentralized. Small blocks kept us paralyzed. Now they're coming for the king, using laws like puppet strings. Spanish prison, McAfee died, making sure Veer stays inside. They can raid the lawyers, what? They can seize the files, yeah. But they can't stop crypto, running wild, running wild. Brownstone dropping truth bombs daily, system going crazy lately. Trying to lock up Bitcoin Jesus, but they cannot defeat us. Fear saw freedom in the code, now they wanna block his road. But the movement's too damn strong, and this persecution's wrong. Free fear. Free fear. Free fear. Free fear. Down on 9 years for following legal advice. That's not justice, that's a warning. Free Roger Veer.
I grew up in the U.S. and I see all these people like, yeah, nuke everybody in the Middle East and kill them all. And then they have the former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright on 60 Minutes, one of the most popular news shows in the U.S. And they asked her, they said, like, there's reports that more than 500,000 Iraqi children have died as a direct result of U.S. sanctions. And she looks back at her with a straight face and she goes, it was a really tough decision, but I think that it was worth it.
You know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
Worth murdering 500,000 kids? because of what the government did, and I apologize for crying, but it just disgusts me from my core when I see government people murdering people around the world. It's not just theoretical, these are real people with real lives. And Bitcoin has the power to undermine everything they're doing to people around the world. And I'm sorry for shouting, but it just disgusts me what these people in government do. And they do it through central banking and through the control of the money supply, and Bitcoin takes that away from them. I gotta stand up because I'm just so excited about Bitcoin. I can't talk about it while sitting down. So, anybody here that's sick of the government inflating the money supply to pay to kill people all around the world? Stop using their money. Use Bitcoin. The answer is here. We can put a stop to all of that. You don't have to support them in any way. Start using Bitcoin. There are so many websites that accept Bitcoin now. More and more coming online every day. If you have a business, you need to start accepting Bitcoin. What Bitcoin allows every single person in this room and on the planet who has access to the internet, you can have your own private bank account, right? It's called a Bitcoin account, and it's impossible for the government to seize your account. It's mathematically impossible for anyone to block you from sending or receiving money with anyone else anywhere in the world. And if you're careful about how you use it, it can be done anonymously as well. This totally strips government's control over the money supply away. There's nothing they can do about it. There's no way they can stop it. The only way they could stop it would be to shut down the entire internet in the entire world, and that's not going to happen. This is what every libertarian's absolute dream come true. It's here, and it's called Bitcoin, and we need to spread the word to everybody about it. And I'm glad you guys are here, and we're here to answer your questions about it. And when you're done learning about it here today, tell your friends, tell your family, help them set up Bitcoin wallets. Tell everybody that you know about Bitcoin. Anytime you need to buy something, ask the merchant if they'll allow you to pay in Bitcoin. And anytime you receive US dollars, convert them to Bitcoins, then use them as Bitcoins. We need to spread this, and the world is going to be a much, much, much better place because of it. And it's not a question of if this is going to happen, it's just a question of how soon it's going to happen. And with your help, we can make it happen sooner rather than later.
All right, here we are. Gonna do this
Hey,
little.
way to go, Aaron.
Gonna do this little.
Good, buddy. How you feeling?
Little emotional.
Of course.
It's been a little more intense than I thought.
Of course.
To be honest, I've got my food here ready to start to eat. Although I'm not that hungry, so I'm actually probably just going to be picking at it a little bit. But yeah, no, this was more intense than I had really anticipated, especially the last 10 days. I'm in Amsterdam right now. So
Right. How was the flight? That must have been rough. I can't imagine.
So I don't usually fly like the fully upgraded seats, but I actually did go up and upgrade it to have the full like bed, because I didn't know if I was going to be able to make it. And in fact, when I landed, between just walking with my luggage, which I packed my luggage enough where all the heavy stuff, I wasn't actually lifting anything, but I actually puked bile waiting for the Uber. So just the walk from the airplane to going through customs. And so yeah, when I got in, which was, I guess, yesterday, I don't know what day it is right now, but I guess Wednesday, I got in like 11:30. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was going to make it, like 11:30 here on Wednesday. So I came back to the hotel and basically slept all day Wednesday and then most of today, and then was able to muster up. Fortunately, this apartment that I'm in, I have an apartment that has a kitchen and a stove and everything, and the grocery store is like a 2-minute walk. So
good.
I was able to do that, and now here I am. But man, I didn't realize I did 37 days before, but the difference between 37 and 40 is actually it's a lot, because at this point it's like this battle. Are you getting enough magnesium and potassium and salt? But everything tastes so bad that you don't want to take any of the salt, and if you take it too fast, you're going to overwhelm your kidneys. So it's like playing this game, and it's just like, yeah, no, it was torture for the last 10 days. So
I can only imagine. How's your family? How, I'm sure they're supportive, but concerned about you flying all the way to Amsterdam.
yeah,
You're single right now, right? Your wife
Yeah.
wasn't able to go.
Yeah, she wasn't able to go. She obviously checked in on my kids, and actually my ex-wife checked in to see if if I was okay and I made it. So yeah, it was a hell of a thing. I don't have enough energy yet to even describe what the overall process is like.
Mm-hmm.
It's been interesting, some of the comments from people. Some of the comments of people are like, like, I'm doing this for weight loss. This is, I mean, I'm separately trying to lose weight, but you don't do a 40-day fast. Weight loss. If I was going for weight loss, I would do intermittent fasting. This kind of fast, once you get past 7 days, and then as you get into to 21, it is very much a spiritual process, because you are completely present for an extended period of time. There's no escapism. You can't escape from the present moment or yourself in any way. And as that goes on for an extended period of time, we spend so much of our life programmed by external things and external parties and things outside of ourselves that amount of time, a lot of people probably wouldn't get that amount of time in their lifetime where they're actually that present. And you end up just learning a lot about yourself and everything. But man, and I'll explain some of that, but as I get more energy. But yeah, what a process.
I'm speechless, and I'm in awe of what you've accomplished, what you've done to get the word out, against the forces against Roger Ver and that lawfare case. It's tremendous. It's noble. It's an amazing feat, as well as, like you said, I think you're getting in touch with the spiritual side and understanding. I think you mentioned last week a lot of meditation as well. Sleep interruptions and that kind of thing too.
Yeah, a lot of meditation, and then you just have like a million different insights. Now, whether you remember them all or whatever, depending upon when it comes up, but you really do start questioning your relationship to everything and the world around you. And it's again, I don't have so I went through this period from like day 14 to day 21, where I got probably 6 months worth of work done. Like, I literally created a working point of sale system that accepts Zano, that has like a dashboard and everything else. And then once day 21 hit, then I went into a thing where I actually screwed up what I'd already built. And then I spent 10 days just trying to figure out how to get back to where I was. And then after that point, by day 30, I was useless. I couldn't sit down for more than 5 minutes at a computer and do anything. And so so I went from like, it almost feels like it was a 50-point IQ shift. It's like I went up and then I went way down. And then I'm like, whoa, what the hell is going on here? So I was, so for the last 10 days, I have not been able to be productive. In fact, I've done very few interviews. I have other people that want to do interviews, and I did one with Sal the agorist, but it was only like 20 minutes. I did another one, and I'm just like, after doing a single interview, I'm done for the day.
Sure.
That was it. So
sure.
When I did the fast the last time, I wasn't doing anything, and it was in the winter. So I've never done a fast where I actually interacted with anybody or tried to work. And so that's a whole, that's a whole new, new avenue. So
it's those things that we do for day to day. Sometimes I think we probably take it for granted. However, it's taxing enough. And then to be on this fast and then still try to accomplish those things. I know from, my small fasts, as well as, being on keto, and feeling that brain fog lift, the synapses firing, it seems like on all cylinders. It's just an amazing feeling. And as well as fatigue that steps in from a fast. So I can't imagine, because what you're experiencing is 1,000, 10,000x more than what I've ever, or most of us have ever experienced.
Well, I would not recommend a 40-day fast. I can actually say that with confidence now. I would recommend building up to a 21-day fast. I think that Gandhi probably had it right. The extra 19 days, were a little overkill.
I know Cesar Chavez did a lot of fasting, protest fasts. I want to say Jesse Jackson did 2 while in jail or something, but I don't recall exactly, and I don't remember how long they went. But
yeah, and there were some, and when Cesar Chavez did it, Robert F. Kennedy, Senior, actually showed up, and it really did help to raise awareness on that issue. There's some people in Ireland that were doing this type of protest. They ended up being force-fed. One of the people actually died, but it has been an effective. But boy, is it misunderstood. Like, even some of the comments that I got online, it's like, I had people like, well, you should do this fast to yourself, and then I'm like, all right, well, where does this come from? And there are a lot of religious texts that say that, but it's like there's no. People don't know about fasting, and when I am more restored, I will explain more about what happened throughout the process and why it's beneficial. But I do think it's something, even getting to 3 days, 7 days, it can reset all of the poison that we're putting in our bodies. And I can say this being in Amsterdam and just going to this grocery store. The grocery store that I went to, first of all the food was cheaper than it was in the United States, but it's like, I didn't have to go scramble to find the healthy food. If I'm in the United States and I'm going to a grocery store, it's like you got to go through the 8 aisles of cereal and candy and everything else to try to find healthy food. Like, all of the food is healthy. And so it's, we people that have not traveled outside of the US really don't yet understand the level to which we are actually being poisoned with our food. But when you so as I'm eating now, so my taste buds have completely reset. So anything that I may have been eating, and I actually wasn't eating junk anyway. I don't eat sugar. I'm mostly keto. But but if you have gotten addicted to, like, if you see how they engineered Doritos and the flavors and everything like this, when you actually reset your palate, you will not want those things.
Yeah, so it tastes like chemicals, you said.
It tastes like absolute chemical. Actually, by the way, I still have electrolytes. This still tastes like shit. I don't know how long it's going to take for some of this to come, because I need to take these electrolytes, but this tastes horrible. I have to nurse this.
Oh, I can imagine.
And I don't remember.
That's what I do the same. I think I showed it to you last time, Dr. Berg, electrolytes. I got the raspberry lemon flavor. As a matter of fact, that's what I have in here. But I just can't imagine what but your choices that you took that picture and put on X, I thought were really wise. Things that are pickled, the sauerkraut. I wonder about the kimchi just because of the spice on your gut. I'm
not doing the kimchi first. So what I'm eating right now is just beef broth with carrots, celery, and spinach. Okay. That's what I'm having first, and I cook the hell out of it so it's completely soft. I'm not going to have because I had some guy suggest, oh, you should break the fast with juice. It's like I could actually die if I broke the fast with juice. If you actually have that kind of glucose surge or whatever, that can kill you. So So this is good. And then now I've broken fast before, and it's like I broke a fast one time and I had chili, and I was fine. But this one, I had more cramping
Mhm.
at the end of this one for the last week. So I know that my digestive system, and with what happened at the airport and everything, I know I've got to be really careful. And so I'm just going to kickstart it with this. And if this goes well, if the soup goes well, then I'll go to pickles, olives. I've got pickles, olives, and kimchi is next. I may get to that today. I may not get to that today.
How
We'll
about
see.
how do you think your liver and kidney functions have been? How have you been monitoring that? Those are, can be a telltale sign to other issues or problems.
Well, you can feel it. That's the one thing about once you're actually this present, you can actually you can feel where the imbalances are. So for instance, I had to stop taking Berg electrolytes. The potassium ratio to magnesium and sodium is actually too high. So what I noticed was I was retaining massive amounts of water. All of a sudden, I'm like, what the hell? I have a massive extended belly. And so I was researching this and everything else. And so I actually cut out electrolytes for a day. And then I rebalanced using this Ultima electrolytes, which has a more balanced ratio of magnesium. That's not to say, by the way, that Berg is bad. So
Exactly.
I believe that we actually need, I mean, who knows, but I question everything, even the, outside the box stuff at this point, but something like 4,900 milligrams of potassium a day is what we actually need. And almost nobody gets that. And everybody says, oh, bananas are great, but bananas have, almost nothing. You'd have to eat like 50 bananas or something to get that amount. So it's in cruciferous vegetables and some other things. So the Berg amount is the right amount. But when you're in this deeply fasted state, and what I'm guessing is happening, and I don't know for sure, but after a while, the autophagy runs out. So there's a period of time where you're feeling great because you've depleted glycogen, and then you're actually using your recycled cells for energy. But then when that runs out, then you're kind of then you're in this thing that I've been for the last 10 days, which is, oh, I better get this balance right. But like the taste and even the texture of the electrolytes is horrible. And then salt tastes bad too. And then you have a bad taste in your mouth. So my throat is dry. And no matter how much liquid I take, my throat is dry. In fact, my tongue turned a little bit white. So one of the things that you're finding that you have to do is, now I'm brushing my teeth 5-6 times a day, even though I'm not eating anything. I've got to brush my tongue, and it just tastes horrible because the only way that the ketones are removed from your system is through urine and through your breath. So, I mean, I warned people. I even told, Sal, when I was going to see him, I said, listen, stay away from me for the first day because there's nothing I can do to fix this breath. But at the same time, you almost have a salty taste in your mouth. Well, that salt, don't let that salty taste fool you. You still need salt. So I could be running a deficit of salt, but my mouth is like, God damn, this tastes like salt. It tastes like I'm literally just in the middle of the ocean, drinking the water. And so that's a challenge. And so you end up learning how to balance that. But then it becomes not doing much activity. So again, get up, go to the computer for 5 minutes. I would take walks, but the walks became, there were days where I got 15, 18,000 steps, but I would go like at a third of my normal pace. And I would tell people, even my kids, don't go on a walk with me. Cause like no one even though I say you've got to go slow, what you can do is I can see my heart rate in real time. So I'm wearing a Fitbit, right? But I would go on a walk. When I go on my normal walk, because I will normally walk 20,000 steps a day. But if I go on a normal walk, I never get zone minutes. I'm still kind of in a lower heart rate thing. In this instance, like I'm like walking slowly and my heart rate is 135, 140. So I had to, so that's another step, which is like, okay, I have to slow down my walking and then I have to stop walking and then I have to take a rest. So it all became for me, it wasn't, I mean, I did this not medically supervised. I mean, I don't know of anybody that does a 40-day non-medically supervised, but again, I've done it because I've researched the hell out of this and I've done it a bunch. And then now I know it's just when I'm checking in and the only I still never got lightheaded the entire
Really?
Not once. And that's the other.
That was one of my questions because I've gone through that.
Not once.
It's almost like vertigo.
every other fast I've had, I've always had some degree of lightheadedness. At one point, I actually passed out. This time, not once. And that's another sign. If you get lightheaded, that means your electrolyte balance is off. So,
Okay.
So that was good. So overall, it went. Wow, that really tastes like a carrot. I don't know if that's.
I'm so honored to be here with you, having your first meal like this. I mean, oh, what an honor. Have you heard from Roger? Or if you can or can't say, I understand.
No, he knows I'm doing it. I know he's grateful for it. But he's not, like I said, I didn't coordinate with him on this or anything, but
Sure.
Yeah, no, he's aware of it. And and I got a note today about that. So,
Nice.
I admire the fact that the commitment. I will say, honestly, though, I'm disappointed because I really thought Roger would be out during the fast.
I know.
I actually really expected that, his case would be dropped or settled or negotiated, or, they were supposed to have the motion to dismiss hearing. Like, I thought there were enough things, triggers and events that would actually have led to him being out. So it is discouraging. And then part of it now is it's like, okay, I'm trying to raise awareness. I think I don't know if I mentioned this or not. I interviewed with the Wall Street Journal. So I did interview with the Wall Street Journal. They haven't published it. And by the way, I did it with hesitation. Sure. I actually talked to some people about it because I generally have a no mainstream media policy.
Oh, I know. I couldn't agree. Because they could slander this and push it in a different direction.
Yeah, the only reason I did is I was talking to some people, and what they said is, because of the situation with the press pool, the mainstream media is so eager to gain some support with Trump that they can actually get access to the press pool, that there was this window where it might have made sense. So it's on that basis only that I did it, but right. It didn't amount to anything. The New York Times did a story on Roger Stone, and they referenced my article that I wrote about Roger in that. And then I have other people that want to do podcasts, but like from an awareness perspective, my concern now is so obviously Roger he's in the process, right, of doing something, because he's got dates and court hearings and everything else. And so there's probably a reason he's not speaking publicly. So I don't want to screw up whatever he's doing. On the other hand, right, my actual concern is that this case has to be dropped by the DOJ, and I don't know how long Pam Bondi has left. So if his whole focus has been to try to work on, the current DOJ, well, then if all of a sudden she's gone, then he's at square zero. And so then if he's had nobody's been talking about his case, then whoever new comes in, if they aren't aware of the situation, he's starting over at square zero.
Oh, I know. Except for the case that now the May case in, I believe, in LA, right, has been postponed to June, if I'm not mistaken.
It's now June the 23rd, which is
right,
the day after Porkfest, and I was hoping Roger would be at Porkfest.
Wow.
So
now, is he have to be present for that, or just as attorneys? Do you know?
I don't think he doesn't have to be, and I think we don't want him to be, because if he is there, that means that he's been extradited and he's probably in prison in LA. So
I was meaning on voluntary basis if he win. Yeah, I don't think that would be a wise choice either, though.
I don't think that's I don't know for sure, but I can't imagine that would be a good idea.
Right.
So, but who knows? I don't know for sure, but I hope to not see him there.
Yes.
And I hope that the hearing doesn't happen. It's just, and this is the other problem that I have. Obviously I have my views that I'm trying to communicate to people about what Trump is doing with the stablecoin bill and everything else, which is all documented. It's all horrible. It's a backdoor CBDC. There's no disputing it at all based on the language of the bill. And so, it's hard for me to interview with people and have a particularly positive context about what's going on. But I do wonder why. I mean, Dragon Chain's now resolved, like everybody else is resolved. Like, why is this still going on? And I'm trying to remain positive, but the first talk I ever gave about this case was May the 12th last year. So it was almost a year ago.
Right.
In San Jose at one of my CBDC workshops. It was the first time that I talked about this. And this has been going on for a year. And,
wow,
you wonder, who's in on it now, but I hope that's not the case. And I hope that this gets resolved. And I want to figure out, I guess the best way I can use this to raise awareness is to raise awareness within the community to probably turn out people to show up to the hearing. That's probably the best and most impactful thing that we can do. I think everything else is probably behind the scenes negotiating lawyer things.
Sure.
Probably.
Oh, I certainly hope so. And I hope that if any kind of word is getting to the upper levels of Trump White House, they're certainly positive about this being lawfare and not a revenge case because of Bitcoin. Because I know he's surrounded by Bitcoin maxis. So,
yeah, he is.
I don't know if Trump is getting any kind of alternative viewpoints, whispered into his ear or not.
I don't know how he would, unless Rogers. Presumably Rogers working on that, but that's got to be that's still tough, because even if we've been trying to get the truth. I've been trying to get the truth out about hijacking Bitcoin and everything else, and I've been nothing but shut down and it's systemic. I mean, they will immediately shut you down. And so there's no doubt. I mean, people will laugh, oh, Roger wasn't censored or everything. I'm like, look, I've got the receipts. I'll show you all of these people who didn't block me before, but blocked me just because Roger retweeted a post where I said that people should read the book, literally just based on that. So they have, I believe, Jameson Lopp or somebody has a GitHub with lists of people to block. So this isn't a joke. Sure. Like, this is an organized censorship campaign. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know how, and I don't know, other than me and a couple of other people, I mean, who's been talking about hijacking Bitcoin? Like,
I know on World Blockchain Roundtable, maybe an audience of 1,000. We're lucky, it gets mentioned almost every week. Maybe a sentence or two, that's about it. But because most of the viewers that I am aware of the show, as well as the panelists, are certainly not, centered around any one blockchain, and look towards blockchain as various utilities that can be applied to different problems that we face. So I know that that is a welcoming audience for Roger and the like I have it right here next to me from bookshelf, hijacking Bitcoin. It's because I got a feeling that if the intelligence agencies were involved, which they were, and he outlines it there on page 107, then they're also involved with big tech, and they certainly want to suppress this story in this book. So that's how my take is. It maybe I'm being a little too conspiratorial. However, we're talking about multiple $1 trillion valuation now, and there are people that don't want to get burned at top levels that are pushing for Bitcoin to be a reserve, be in Trump's reserves. And it's pretty disgusting as far as how they've become whores, to be honest with you.
Here's the thing. I think it's possible that Roger got hit twice. I think Biden wasn't concerned as much about hijacking Bitcoin because Biden didn't like Bitcoin, but Biden was trying to push a CBDC. Biden wanted to shut down Roger because Roger is effective at promoting alternatives to central bank currencies. That's why.
Well, but that goes back to the Trump era, because in 2016, 2017, Trump wasn't probably knowledgeable who Roger Ver was or what he was talking, but certainly other people were. And I remember watching, YouTube videos starting to go viral, and then all of a sudden they started getting shadow banned. And this was before the fork wars. So I kind of think that, well, and then what was the president of the CME in December of 2017? He was quoted of saying, before the CME went live and made Bitcoin a future, said, "We will tame Bitcoin." And that was approved by Mnuchin and Trump. So they were already against Roger at that point. Roger's been fighting this since his early 20s.
They were, and the assistant controller under Mnuchin ended up becoming the chief legal officer at Coinbase, who actually drafted the product roadmap for USDC.
There you go.
And then Howard Lutnick. I think Howard Lutnick is probably the Antichrist, to be honest. This guy is actually, he is horrible news. So, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And at this point, I'm not even sure what to do to help. There's kind of, it's like, I want to keep people aware of this, but on the other hand, the time, they still haven't done the Bitcoin strategic reserve or passed the stablecoin bill. There's a part of me that says, take for instance, RFK Jr., right? Mm-hmm. Well, RFK Jr.'s running mate's boyfriend runs a Lightning Network company. So anyway, RFK ends up getting all excited about Bitcoin, and he goes and speaks at the conference and everything else. But if he's a guy that's interested in facts, I've tried to get him a copy of Hijacking Bitcoin from a couple of different angles, including trying to give it to him in person at an event a while back. But, in theory, based on him being interested in the truth, he seems like the kind of person that when presented with the new information would change his mind. That's been hard for me. And, I think at some point the idea was, well, maybe we should hold off on that. Maybe, pushing Hijacking Bitcoin isn't the right thing to do. The whole focus should be just focusing on, lawfare and getting the pardon. The problem is that book needed to get out there. People needed that information. There was a window for that information to get out. I remember when that Bitcoin conference happened last year in Tennessee, and it's like all these politicians, Loomis and everybody are talking about this. And I'm like, God damn, none of you have heard of this book. So I'm like trying to tweet. I've taken the book and I've tried to make memes out of it. I've tried to do everything that I can, but whatever. Maybe I've reached 50 to 100,000 people, and it's not the right people. And I've given this book to a lot of people. I mean, I've given Hijacking. I gave it to Gio Griffin. I've given it to other politicians. I've given a lot of other politicians my book, which doesn't have Hijacking Bitcoin, but it has, but it does have a section that explains that Bitcoin was hijacked. And so, but
I wonder about Tim Pool. He seems to be crossing different aisles now, and I don't know. He's even gotten into the woo-woo thing of solar CMEs and polar flips and crustal flip as of late. So, he might be. I don't know.
Well, the good news is that Tucker Carlson and Charlie Kirk and Alex Jones are on Roger's side.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know Charlie Kirk is.
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Well, he's on the website, and he was one of the first. He did an interview with Roger before even Tucker, and before Alex Jones. So when you go
that's right. I remember that interview. Yeah. So, good. Yeah. I wish they would talk it up more.
No, I wish they would too. The thing is, who knows what's going on. I can only assume that he's got good people and that he's working a strategy and that his silence is strategic. So, I'm assuming that. And this New York Times article states that Roger Stone is involved. So, I don't know to what extent that's.
I have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah.
Are we talking about Roger Stone, the author, not the director, correct? Or we're talking about Roger Stone, because there's two. Roger Stone, that worked from the Nixon.
Yeah, that's the Roger Stone.
Yeah, with the big Nixon tattoo on his back.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for that man. I think he's calling it right when you get into the the JFK assassination and his research, and Nixon was a character assassination. JFK was a bullet assassination. So I actually have a lot of respect for Roger Stone. So if that is good, that means Luke Rudkowski and Roger Stone are practically neighbors down there in Miami, if I'm not mistaken. And Roger Stone has been on Luke's. No,
Luke is on board. I was on Luke's show. Luke is.
Yeah, I know Luke is on board. Luke has always been there. I guess my point I'm trying to make is, if these individuals would start talking more about it, or even just one of them, the other one's going to hear the other one talking about it and might spur it, more conversation. In other words, they'll start talking about it again, is where I'm trying to get at. But I don't know. Law is funny because it moves so slow, and then all of a sudden it moves rapidly.
It definitely seems to be gradual at this point. I'm ready for the suddenly part.
I think, though, it's, to be honest with you, Aaron, I believe it goes beyond just the Bitcoin and the block size wars. I think it has to do with Roger's stance on voluntarism and freedom stance, peace. So he's going up against when you start thinking in those terms, he's going up against the State Department. He's going up against the military-industrial complex. He's, not just the DOJ, not just the IRS, and
he's going up against the money masters.
Yes.
Congratulations, Aaron. This has been incredible that you were able to get this far. And you had mentioned earlier about you went through that period about 20 days in where you just had that burst of energy. It was very difficult keeping up with you, with everything that you were doing. I'm hoping that we can get, what are we up to now? Closing in on 50 minutes. Usually you'll do 3+ hours. So how are you feeling so far? And how many questions can I throw at you?
Well, I feel fine because I got a 6-hour time difference. So interestingly, it's whatever 2:18 in the morning here. And this time zone thing is actually pretty bad. I've been in bed the last 2 days, so I have a talk and I have a keynote speech tomorrow and a panel, and then I have another keynote speech and another panel the day after. So we'll see how that goes. But originally I was actually supposed to speak on the 40th day, and that, I will tell you, would have not gone well. I probably would have passed out doing that.
Well, you look great and you sound great right now. So this is incredible. What's the hardest part of the fast, physically and mentally? What was that you went through?
The hardest part actually became my stomach cramps. Stomach cramps, and then balancing electrolytes and figuring out how to do that on an ongoing everyday basis, knowing that everything tastes like shit. Like even though I have now had this soup and a bite of pickle and everything, these are my electrolytes. This stuff still tastes like shit. Like this is, I used to be able to just guzzle this. Like it's still, I don't remember there being a long reset period. So I'm hoping this snaps back relatively quickly, but it's the fact that like I'm sitting there listening to my body and I know what I have to do, but everything tastes so bad that it's like, it's a chore. And then it's not, and it also isn't one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm just going to guzzle this, because if you guzzle it and you put too much strain on your kidneys, then that'll create a problem. So you are in this, like, the good news is you're really in tune with your body. Like I was very aware and very present about what's going on. The bad news is it's like, okay, I'm sipping water constantly. I'm having to make sure that I'm lying down. I'm really having to check in. And I had to tell other people, like, I mean, look, I still drove my kids to school. Like I still did stuff. Like I did a couple of interviews, but I mean, if I did an interview, then that was it for the day. Then I was completely done. But something like going and getting the mail is a task where you think about it and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe I could ever possibly go and get the mail. Or just having to be so strategic about your energy and how you sequence you do things, knowing that, it's not like there are a lot of things to do, but you also have to go to the bathroom a lot. So you've got to take 3 liters of water a day, which means you're peeing a lot. And then I'm also looking at my pee to see, all right, well, what is the color like and everything else? And so it's when you have so little mental and physical energy, just doing those things is draining. And then it becomes really hard to concentrate. So I would watch just stupid shit. Like I'd watch Matlock or something. I would watch it like a complete, because I didn't have this was not a time to sit and binge watch, a bunch of YouTube lectures or something. Like there's not enough concentration, and the cramping in my stomach was really uncomfortable. The other thing that I found is at night when I would go to sleep, so between, and I'm sure this is just a circadian rhythm thing, but between like 8 p.m. and 1 in the morning, that seems to be when I'm producing a lot of ketones and burning a lot of stuff. And because of that creates a lot of I don't know if it's acid reflux or whatever you want to call it, but I can't lay down from 8 p.m. until 1 a.m. So I know even if I'm tired, I have to sit up during that time period. I will not be able to go to sleep.
Right.
But again, these are all just things that I learned. Some of the amazing things that happened during this, and I wasn't measuring a lot. I mean, I have my Fitbit. I have an 8-sleep bed. And I mean, I didn't even bother to use ketosis strips because there was literally no reason to do that. But managed to keep every night, with the exception of one night that was actually fairly early on in the process, my heart rate variability, my breathing rate, my deep sleep and REM sleep were all in normal ranges the entire fast. That has never happened. That's never happened before. And there were times like 2 days ago, I was thinking, all right, when I puked up bile at the airport, I'm like, I might need to stop the fast. Like my plan here is I'm not going to kill myself for this. And I'm going to listen to my body. I'm willing to go through the suffering if I know that the suffering is simply, all right, I got to suffer through this electrolyte imbalance. I'm going to have this discomfort. I'm willing to do that. I'm not great with the idea of, having organ failure, or having to go to a hospital in a foreign country or something like that. So I was really highly attuned to that, but not ever feeling lightheaded and having all of those sleep metrics in range the whole time was really surprising. I was very happy about that, but it's the cramping that was the worst part of it. But I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that I've learned. And then there are things that I remember that I learned the last time I did a long-term fast that are just like, I've been saying for a long time that, it's love versus fear, and abundance versus scarcity, decentralization versus centralization, and free will versus determinism. And I came to that realization the last time I had a long-term fast. Because I wasn't sure when. Part of the doing the long-term fast like this is it gets you into your right brain. You absolutely, in fact, that was my intention when I did it originally. But I think the people that were doing these mystery school things like Pythagoras and the ancient Egyptians and ancient Greeks as a right to entry, it really was, I think, in part to get you into your right brain where you're actually, a better way that we would describe it now is to be connected to the quantum field. And there are a lot of things I'm not going to be able to articulate well because I still don't have enough energy to do it, but that make a lot more sense and that we are going to be able to understand. Science is really far behind. I did some posts that probably made no sense to anybody, but I'm like, random controlled trials are complete bullshit. It's all based on materialistic science. We're like measuring the shadows, right? If we are energy and we're connected to everything else, the random clinical trial, the whole idea of it is that you aren't connected to anything. And we're going to measure you by taking away all of the environmental variables. Well, the environmental variables, if we're in a holographic universe or if we're all interconnected, then all of those variables are the most important thing. So the entire basis of science and how we measure things is irrelevant. And it's why big pharma doesn't work, because big pharma is all optimized to find success within that measurement system. So all you're doing is you're treating, you really are treating the symptom. You're like treating, we're part of this big energy thing, and all you're seeing is the reflection off the cave wall. We're literally just, modern medicine is just treating the reflection on the cave wall. That is all that it's doing by design and by the way that it's measured.
So it's a double split experiment for the wave function of a human being?
So there are other things that we should be measuring. We should be measuring our energy and actually the energy around us. And there are a lot of implications for this. Now, George, because you've experienced this, I have this bio well that you actually use, that you can stick your fingers in there and it actually measures your energetic field. It will give you a printout of, basically your aura, but where there are breaks in the energy field. And so and so you go back to Chinese medicine and everything else like this, and all of your, again, I'm not going to be articulate right now, but basically your energy flows and everything that does map to your circuitry in your body. And we are electrical beings. And so Dr. Joe Dispenza uses this, and it uses it not only to measure individuals, but to measure the room itself. So when they do different meditations, they actually measure the energy level of the room, and then they do individual. My point is, we need to be doing these kinds of tests. We need to be actually getting to understand and more what we are as energetic beings, as opposed to matter, where we're measuring the effects of things on matter, which matter is just a low vibration of energy. So it's a lower vibration. If you want to change something, you change it at a higher level of vibration. So all of modern medicine is about dealing with this low frequency and measuring it in a way where it's removed from the environment. And so I'm saying modern medicine is fucking useless. Like, it's actually useless. When somebody says random clinical trials are the gold standard, it's not a standard at all. This is why I get so irate about RFK or what everybody else is saying. We have been so locked into the wrong way of even thinking. And by the way, this isn't like, we've known about this since the 1920s, right? This isn't, what the thing is, this isn't woo-woo science. This is stuff that's been known for 100 years, but inertia and protecting financial interests and everything else aside, we're literally on the wrong operating system for our understanding of who we are as human beings. And so I went through a phase on that, and that actually does fit into some of the stuff that I had already been doing before, but I really realized, because a lot of people were saying to me, well, why don't you do all these tests, or you don't know if fasting works or not? Well, actually, the reality is, if you can get present, it's kind of like, we are so at the point where we're outsourcing everything. We have to get tests for everything. Brian Johnson's getting all of these biomarkers and everything else. And do we have food allergies? And here are all these food allergy tests. If you are present and in tune with your body, and you get your mind out of it, not what you've been programmed to believe you think you know about nutrition. If you're actually able to cut that off and listen to your body as you go into a grocery store, your body will tell you what it needs, because our kind of subconscious, if you will, is like a supercomputer in terms of horsepower. Our conscious ability is it's like less than 3% of our overall computing power. And that computing power can be corrupted. That computing power, that consciousness, is completely determined by all of these external parties, and it gets in the way. I mean, this is our fear and our ego and all of it. If you can get that out of the way and just tune in, you actually don't need all of this stuff. But as a society, we're moving towards, now I need a 600 panel test for this. And I'm like, coming out of this, like, I'm never going to use any of these tests again. I already don't go to doctors, but I'm also like, but moving forward, to the extent that we're going to try to measure these things, we need to be measuring things that are actually even up to date with physics. Some of Dr. Jack Cruz's stuff is interesting.
Isn't it? I like him a lot.
Yeah, his stuff is interesting. I mean, the fact that he's a Bitcoin maxi, you know, I'll look past it. But I find so I'm going to start. So every time I come out of one of these fasts, you make tweaks, and the tweaks aren't just diet tweaks. I mean, I've already made like diet tweaks in the past. I mean, the reason that I gained weight at all is simply I couldn't walk 20,000 steps a day. I had a whole bunch of stress, was traveling, and I'm not great. I'm great at being singularly focused, but that can mean that I just forget about other things. But it's not that I don't have the knowledge about what I should be doing, and I'm largely doing those things. But I think, you know, more often than not, now I've got my screen, I've got F-Lux on here, and you know, if I were home, I'd be wearing my glasses as well. I'm gonna play around with his stuff, and I think there's stuff at the intersection of what Jack Cruz is doing with Bruce Lipton and with Joe Dispenza and Tom Campbell. All of it together, I think that's a whole area that needs to be explored. And we need to create and I don't know how it will work yet, but there's a whole different way of probably measuring, trying different things that can be created in a decentralized manner, probably using tokenization system or something like that, that is a complete replacement for random clinical trials. But I mean, I'm at the point right now where I'm irate about the fact that, you know, these surgeon generals, I mean, what a horrible costume they wear. But I mean, why are we why are we at this point where it's like, oh, well, our guy's in this position now? Like, they're all pursuing the wrong science. They've all been indoctrinated the same wrong way. And now everybody's lining up about which indoctrinated guy is going to have the ability to set policy that determines what people can and cannot do in terms of even experimenting or measuring. And so I'm going to be harsh about just, and I've said it before because I think it needs to be done. I think doctors need to be attacked and mocked, because I mean, it's not enough that they should not have any power at all. You should never be. And when you get into situations, and honestly, this is with a lot of libertarians. Well, what did the random clinical trial? It's like, fuck you. First of all, not only is this not measuring the right thing, but even if it were measuring the right thing, none of this information is reproducible. And it's all funded by people that have vested interests in the outcome. Right. So even if your methodology, which is right, which it isn't, your data is fake. And so I don't want to have any more of those conversations. So moving forward, I just want to start moving out of a lot of things, a lot of debates. The other, I mean, there's a mile-long list. I'll just say the ones that I can remember and partially articulate. But another big one is this whole idea of trying to influence public opinion. A lot of this stuff where like changing the debate and you know, even the whole, well, you know, if I get on Joe Rogan or if I get on, you know, these channels or Tucker Carlson, then maybe we're going to get people to change the more I think about it, it's like that's a failed strategy, because what actually needs to happen is people need to realize that they're programmed so that they can start exercising their own free will and start exercising and making their own thoughts, decisions, and action. That's what needs to happen. If you're just substituting out what it is that somebody believes or how they're being programmed, then you're no different than the other guy. You're just providing a different level of programming. And so that to me is a bad thing to do. Like, so, I mean, like to the point where I'm like, okay, that actually seems morally wrong to me to do that. I don't want to manipulate people to do what I want. I want to help people realize they're being programmed. And then once they realize that, they can figure out whatever they want to think and do and act on their own, but at least with the understanding that they've been programmed, and also with the understanding of the fact we've all been programmed, but that what we end up crafting as our identity is is programming, and it can be changed at any point in time. We're not stuck with it. So most people's personalities end up being defined by trauma, and that doesn't need to be the case. Just because something happened to you doesn't mean that that is what your identity is. So as people strip away the programming that pulls them back and, you know, gives them these self-limiting beliefs, and as they're becoming aware of the fact that everybody's trying to program them, then they become present. And the more people, I think one person becoming present is worth 1,000,000 people that you might change or influence their mind through some kind of public discourse or by trying to change the arc of this stuff. And so I become, so I like feel it. I'm trying to figure out how to, I feel it energetically that doing that kind of stuff is draining. I guess I can think about things more because I can at least start to express more about how I feel about them. Engaging in those things, it doesn't actually make me happy either. So I'm perfectly capable of doing it, but it's like, okay, that's not where I want to put my energy. So related to this broader concept of energy and not matter and everything else, I'm going to be more conscious of if something doesn't feel right energetically, not doing it.
Right. So that's a great jumping off point for just discussing the physicalness of the fast. So I've known you for a while. I've known you to do an incredible number of fasts. I remember when you got to the 37-day previously, I actually thought it was 38. But now you've just you're literally right here on this podcast eating for the first time in 40 days. So if somebody's going to be watching this and saying, you know, I've been debating about doing a fast, maybe I've done some intermittent fasting. Can you just give a breakdown over the past number of years when you first started to fast, and just a rough number of how many fasts you've done and the time lines on them, like, you know, 3-day, 5-day?
So I first started fasting, and I realized also that throughout my life have just done things for reasons that I don't even know why at various points in my life. So for instance, I mean, I grew up in Indiana, and for some reason when I was 16, 17 years old, I became a vegan. And I will tell you, no one influenced me to do that. I actually have no idea why I decided to become a vegan, but I did find the idea of eating animals to be problematic. Like I just didn't even want to touch flesh. Like there was that component to it, but it was weird, and it was very difficult, almost impossible. Because I mean, we're talking about like 1990, early 1990s. Good luck being a vegan in Indiana in the 1990s. And then I read somewhere that for a while, and I think maybe he was in his teens or early 20s, Benjamin Franklin was as well. He ended up going off that wagon pretty hard, and then ended up, partying with all the women and hanging out in France and doing whatever he ended up doing there. But so anyway, I've always experimented with things like that, and I would fast also. Like on Sundays, just for and again, there's literally, I wasn't religious at all, so there was no tie to it. So there would come a period of time where I would just fast periodically on Sundays. And this started when I was like 18 or so. Not all of the time, but when I would get into a mode, and I often go into modes, and I don't know if I need to fix this or not. So part of this is, I do believe there's a certain aspect of this where there's some people that say, well, you should just be moderate and be doing the same thing all the time. And I feel like that's not really how we're built. I think that doing things like doing sprints and then recovery has been shown to be more helpful for a whole variety of reasons. And now a lot of people are doing things like saunas and cold plunges and everything else. And it's kind of the similar concept where putting your body under stress and then letting it recover actually allows you to build up resilience and kind of or become more bulletproof, or whatever analogy. The problem is that I'll pick stuff to do where it's not a sprint. Like, so, all right, I want to try to warn everybody about CBDCs and then raise awareness about this Roger thing. Well, that turned out to be a 2.5 year thing, and it's not done. And so at what point, So I've done stress for 2.5 years. Where's the recovery? So I've got to get better with the syncing that up. So to get around to this, I started fasting probably when I was 19 and would go through these periods of recovery where when I was working on something, a startup or doing whatever, and then there was a recovery phase, that's when I would typically experiment with things like that. I really got into it in 2021, I think. Well, I guess before that, I guess actually 2019 when I was down in your place in Florida, when I left New Hampshire and I was staying with George for like 6 months and lost a bunch of weight, went through a divorce, whole long, midlife crisis kind of thing, got remarried. But during that period of time, while I was down in Florida, I was doing biohacking, and a whole variety of stuff, just experimenting with everything and like doing all kinds of research that was outside of my normal comfort zone. And that's when I found healthy keto. I experimented with different kinds of keto, but really Dr. Eric Berg's healthy keto. And so, so he really promotes this idea of being in ketosis. So never eating more than like 50 grams of carbs a day. And there are a lot of parameters to it. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you basically want your body to always be in a state of ketosis where you're always burning your fat as a primary fuel source. And if you can give your body a rest as you basically shorten the window for intermittent fasting. So maybe you go from, a 10-hour eating window to a 6-hour window where it's like you're not eating for 18 hours a day, but you eat within a 6-hour window, to then once you become so fat adapted, you can skip. So I got to the point where I would do, a 4-hour eating window every day, just because once you're adapted, you actually don't need that food. People would think that this is about suffering, but if you can time your food right, then it turns out you're actually full. And a lot of the reason people are overweight and have a whole bunch of different problems is they bought into this. You have to eat 3 meals a day. You have to have snacks. All that's bullshit. I did all of those. I talked about that in some previous podcasts. But as you really get down through this, it's like, yeah, okay, I can have a 4-hour eating window. And if I still have to, and if that can be your baseline, but then if you still have to lose weight, you can actually just start eating every other day. And not be hungry. Like literally, you can do that, and you can't necessarily lift weights. There are other parameters. But so I would go from a 10-hour eating window to a 4-hour eating window to then eating every other day, to then maybe having a short eating window and then fasting on Sundays. And then I started really exploring more about long-term fasts. So I read not only Eric Berg's work, but Walter Longo, I believe is his name, Dr. Fung, I believe Jason Fung. Oh, yeah. There's a guy, Dr. Alan Goldhammer. So I basically read everything that I could about fasting and watched every video that I could about fasting. And so now that I'm normally in the state of ketosis, for me at that point to do a 3-day fast is not that big a deal. But you actually have to do it in a progression like this. If somebody who's never fasted, who eats a bunch of sugar or whatever, certainly I wouldn't recommend, I'm not sure I would recommend anybody do a 40-day fast, but I wouldn't recommend that anybody even just start off with like a 3-day fast. Just, you have to, people have a lot of metabolic disorders that have been caused by the poison and public health information that we've been given over the past decades. And so start small and then build up to it. And then been doing the research. It's like, okay, a 3-day fast will reboot your immune system. So now it's like, okay, well, once a quarter, it probably makes sense as the seasons change to do a 3-day reboot. 7 days, kick in stem cells. And, I can't prove this using random controlled testing and all this other stuff. Not that I would even care to or think that it matters, but it seems to me that if somebody did a fast, if you did a 7-day fast once a year, there's no reason you should develop cancer. Literally, you are going through autophagy and you are kicking in new stem cells. As long as the cancer hasn't reached some advanced state, which cancer takes a while to develop, as long as you are, and I don't know when I say 7 days once a year. I don't know if that's the right period, but there is probably some period, interval of fasting where a whole series of diseases will just never present themselves if you're fasting. And so you then push it, and then after you push it for a while, now when I was doing the intermittent fasting and everything else, I was also doing a lot of meditation and exploring a lot of other areas. So every time I would endeavor to do I never did a long-term fast because I was sick, and I never did I always did a long-term fast because I actually wanted to push the envelope. When I did the 37-day fast, it really was, oh, well, if these people were doing this for mystery schools and based on everything that I've read about that, then maybe this is a way of tapping into my right brain, because I've been mostly left brain. Although I then realized that's not even actually true. I haven't been. I've been both, but we get pigeonholed into these things. But then it's like, oh, okay, now I get that. So the longer ones, I would only recommend if people have really serious health problems, which, I mean, and if you do that, then you probably do want to go, then you've waited too long and you probably do want to go to like Dr. Goldhammer's clinic. But I think this is a tool now for people. If they start going through it and building up to it, they can not only use it to get off of food and all off of the junk, because again, you do a 7-day fast, you're not going to want the Snickers bar. You're not going to want any of that stuff. You think you will want it. You're like, oh, I really love these things. And then if you go through and actually go through this process, you have to become unconscious to go back to it. You literally have to become unconscious. Now, most people do become unconscious because we're bombarded with bullshit all the time and we're being programmed. But you will not suffer. Like, I don't suffer not eating. I used to eat desserts and all this other stuff. I do not suffer or want it at all. Even while fasting, another thing that happens is there's a period of time during this where I'll watch cooking shows.
Oh, really?
And it's not suffering. I'm not like, oh, I really want that right now. But a lot of it is thinking about, well, what am I going to eat? Not when I break the fast, but what am I going to do to change my diet? So you start exploring different foods and different cuisines and things like that. One thing, because I'm all over the place just remembering this. The one thing that was interesting about this that I don't have answers for, I actually was hungry on day like 32 or 34 and 37 of the fast. And that's unusual. And I actually don't know why. Normally I'm not actually hungry, but there were 2 days where I'm like, this really sucks. I actually went with my kids to the grocery store, which I always do. I'll go to restaurants with people while I'm doing a long-term fast. Because again, once you're really kicked into it, it's not torture like you think it would. But man, those 2 specific days, I don't have an explanation for. The other thing that happened, somebody had asked about this online, is like I took a shit on day 32 of the fast, and it wasn't like bile or something. It was a normal colored, poop. I know this is a weird thing to talk about, but I'm like, what could that be? What is coming out of my intestines 32 days into the fast? And
really,
the only thing I've come up with is, I guess this is something in Ayurvedic medicine where what they do for a colon cleanse is they actually take a lot of salt, and what that does is like shifts the gradient or something, and it cleans out your intestine. And sometimes I would actually just crack a little bit of Himalayan pink salt and then just put it in my mouth. So maybe on those days I did that, and there was something related to that. But it was very bizarre. That was an anomaly. Like where I'm like, well, I don't know what that is. But coming out of this fast now, my gut bacteria has been cleaned out. I mean, we all have horrible gut bacteria, more than likely. The stuff that we eat. By the way, if you drink diet soft drinks, if you drink things with NutraSweet or sucralose, that shit destroys your gut bacteria. It's horrible for your gut bacteria. So your gut bacteria is important. This is why I have kimchi. And by the way, I have kimchi instead of sauerkraut because I couldn't find the sauerkraut. But kimchi is great. The Koreans eat about 45 pounds of kimchi a year, and they don't have the kinds of problems that we have with digestion that are, gut bacteria related. So now as I come out of this, if I can stay conscious, then I'm only going to eat foods that my body actually needs. And then a big part of the next 30 days is repopulating my gut bacteria. So now that everything is fixed, stem cells are fixed, inflammation is gone. I have absolutely no symptoms of anything that I had before. I don't have brain fog. I just say my IQ is about 30 points lower than it was, but that'll jump back up. But I don't have any inflammation anywhere. I don't have any brain fog. My issues I was having with my knee are gone. The issues I was having with my Achilles are gone. So I have like no underlying health issues. I don't have lung issues. I was having issues with coughing and upper respiratory infections for a long time, for like 6 months coming off of COVID. That's all gone. And so now it's like, it is a complete reboot. Dan O'Neill talked about it. He's like, it is like a time machine. I mean, I feel like, and you know, my kids notice it too. I look about, you can't tell with this light, I look about 5 years younger. And it's not just the weight loss. Your skin literally clears up. Any issues that you had with skin go away. That happens like days 10 through 14. So now it's like a whole new opportunity to build on this. And so that's going to be a fun thing to hack through. But I will say that the mental energy that's been annoying. It has been frustrating, you know, not being able to even like study anything. It's not only am I not like coding stuff. I mean, George, you know, right? I mean, I had a functional point of sale system working that, you know, I had two servers set up, and I have a Xano node that's pinging in real time, and we're doing real time confirmations and breaking up payments. And I think I already figured out a solution for, you know, remember we were doing 30 years ago trying to do multi-party settlements. I think I figured out a way to do that. Yeah. I'm just, you know, I'm doing this with AI, but at the same time, it's still like, okay, we're like figuring out a whole bunch of stuff. And now it's like, I don't even know if I could remember what I did now.
You will.
I will, but that part of it is
heartbreaking. Did you keep a journal through this process?
I did until like the last 10 days, just because I like the energy level to do that. But I mean, I can remember what it was because it was consistent every day. I mean, it was this constant battle with these electrolytes and these, you know, different flavors and water and salt, and like, oh my God. And am I getting enough water? And then, you know, it was, and then with no energy to do anything. It was all the same pattern for like the last 10 days. But I did keep a fairly lengthy journal with a bunch of different columns on it in terms of, you know, what's my mood and, you know, intellectual, emotional, what did I learn? Because there are a lot of things, even when I was doing the podcast every day, like I started off with coffee and tea and electrolytes. I was pushing electrolytes. And then by the end, I'm like, yeah, I only want water. And then I can't use these electrolytes. And then it's like, yeah, but the lack of energy, it's like even setting up this podcast. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot goes into the podcast, but just to get to configure like all of the images and set up, like we're not on Rumble because I guess Rumble's offline right now, but I have to set up all these channels, set up different images. And then to get people to show up, the reason I play the music at the beginning is because I have to post links in Telegram groups and everything else. And like as I'm sitting here, I'm like, well, I'm not going to play 10 songs at the intro, but I just didn't get a chance to post many links because I'm like operating like a sloth. So anyway.
All right. So if we could summarize about the fasting part, you've been, you started fasting in the early 90s when you were vegan. I knew you well back then, and you were highly productive, and people were amazed at, you know, your mental capacity and your energy levels, even before you started doing any kind of paleo related things or more advanced fasting. So over the past over the past 8 years or so, you've upped the fasting game, where you know, 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, 15-day fasts, and then you did the 37, and now you've reached the 40-day mark. Earlier in the conversation, you had talked about Fitbit, so you were monitoring heart. You said you weren't doing ketone strips. you have the bed and the sleep app. So back, a couple of weeks ago, you had posted, I think that you slept 11 hours and you had like a 99% sleep mode. And so I imagine if you weren't doing ketone strips, you probably weren't testing blood sugar in any way, right?
No.
Okay. So is
No,
there?
and again, I don't even believe that part of the learning of all this is I don't even believe in all that stuff anyway. I actually believe that if you're in tune with your body, I don't need a bed to tell me whether I got enough deep sleep or REM sleep. If I need my bed to tell me that, then I'm probably out of touch with myself at some fundamental level. So I'm actually like I'm thinking like I might even ditch the Fitbit. That's kind of where I'm going with. Like I can't articulate it yet, but there's an aspect of this where it's like, this is why when I say that pieces together some of the Dr. Joe stuff with the Jack Cruz stuff and everything else, it's like at the end of the day, love is a higher order energetic state that does affect, if you are in that state as opposed to fear, you're actually expressing different genes. And, so much of this is just a little bit of a sidetrack, but a lot of like this genetic testing that people do is just, here I'm going to hand myself a whole pile of limiting beliefs that I'm going to assign to my identity. As if we know if these genetic markers are accurate, or do we even know if we're expressing those genes? I may have a certain set of genes, but you can epigenetically, you can express different genes. And what actually changes epigenetics is a change in your environment. It can be a physical change in your environment, or it can be a change in your internal state. And the biggest thing that you can actually do to influence and affect this is to be in a state of love versus fear. And it actually, Dr. Joe has measured a lot of this. And this is the kind of stuff that people wouldn't believe because they're still stuck with their materialistic, how do I measure this without any concern for the environment? But I think that I think life is a lot simpler than we're trying to make it. I mean, I think it really is more about expressing love instead of fear and remaining present. And if you do those things, it actually has biological impacts that we're now starting to understand. But science is like way far behind from understanding all this. So I'll do a presentation about this because most people aren't going to believe it. So I'm already aware of that. That's fine. But I'm going to kind of lay all of this out. But it really is about if you can remain present, and remaining present is then understanding, is this thing that I'm doing or working on, is this a low energy thing or a high energy thing? And if you're aware of that, you can keep moving on to moving away from the things that are pulling down your energy that will actually extend your life. And I think things like the BioWell and other sensors and other things are going to be developed that will measure this better. But there is so much going against this, right? This is where things like 5G become impactful, because if the signals around us, and we are energetic, if this actually does impact us holistically, then that has impact for Verizon and Google and everybody else. There are a lot of people that are going to not want to discuss this or to pursue it, because all of big pharma is based on not curing people, which it doesn't cure people. We spend $4.5 trillion a year and nobody is cured of a fucking thing. And we have a lot of other things that we're implementing, and this is why I have such an issue with Elon Musk, because at the end of the day, he is a materialist, and the outcome of his worldview is technocracy. And I think that he's brilliantly executing on if that's your worldview, but completely missing the point about consciousness and the nature of reality on the other hand. That's why I think he's actually dangerous. But again, as I say this, I'm going to lose a lot of people on this, but whatever, it is what it is. I sense all of these discussions and everything that's going on and all of the energy around Doge is going to fix this and Trump is going to fix this and these public health people are going to fix this. There's a 0% chance it's going to fix it, because they're not even attempting to address the right problem, and they can't address the right problem because they're actually stuck in a particular way of thinking. The problem with their way of thinking, and it's fine for people to have different views of thinking, but they use the force of the state to make it so that their way of thinking is the only thing that's allowed to exist. But rather than fight that, just do the other thing. Everything, like don't ask for permission from anyone on anything. Just build these other things and don't even waste any time on it. And also don't waste time thinking, and I say this a lot try to say this a lot of different ways, but trying to convince somebody, I'm going to make up, I'll call it the arbitrary number, but somebody that's like, at some point, if 75% or more of your thoughts, actions, and emotions are determined by external forces, you are an NPC. You become an NPC. Trying to convince and convert an NPC from the standpoint of looking at it from any standpoint, marketing, how you affect your time. Our time is our most important asset. Trying to spend time on people that are at that level, the ROI on that is going to be almost zero. So don't do it. Focus on the people that, and I'm making up the percentages on what percent, but if you can start making people aware and conscious of the fact that they do have control over their own thoughts and actions and emotions, and that who they are as a person right now has been determined by other people. Again, one person that understands that is worth 1 million or more people out in the mainstream public. And so I've been trying to get to this. I've been trying to articulate this in different ways. I'm not articulating it as well as I'll be able to in like 5 days, but I think this is where the time should be spent. I'm just watching a lot of people argue over people that are not even fully awake themselves, that are taking their own trauma and their own limiting beliefs and now trying to impose this through public discourse. Is just it's a waste of time. I guess I'm more passionate about helping people reclaim their free will at a core level. I'm actually passionate about that over push. There is no specific agenda, whatever that means. Once somebody is aware and is present, then what they do with that is theirs. I don't have an agenda with that, but that seems to me like a worthy place to spend time. The rest of the stuff is noise, and it's just negative. It's really negative energy that's fruitless.
Right. If we could just touch on something that you had mentioned earlier about at 32 days, you had a bowel movement. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is in one of your posts earlier today, the thread started to build out where a gentleman had said that he was going to ask about pooping. So you had said that you were drinking a certain amount of water per day, and you were limiting it because you didn't want to tax your kidneys too much. But over the span of the 40 days, what was your typical urination and bowel movements like?
I mean, early on, I would have just liquid bowel movements for like the first, 7 days or so, and then nothing. Then there was literally almost nothing for a couple of weeks. And then this thing on day 32 was a complete out of left field, not unexpected. Peeing was pretty constant, but the water I would drink at, just paced all the time. I was constantly sipping water, and I was alternating between electrolyte water and then just pure water, because you're not supposed, because I went through a period where I had too much of electrolytes. It wasn't just Berg's electrolytes. All I was drinking was electrolyte water. And that was too much for my kidneys to handle. I didn't need that much potassium or magnesium or salt. And so I finally got that balance right. So I would get to the point where I would have 2 of these. I have a Soda Stream. I would have 2 of these a day with electrolytes, and then, 3 or 4 of these that were just regular water. Maybe I wasn't fully counting it, but I was constantly always drinking water. And I don't know how many times I would pee, but I was peeing all the time. I mean, including in the middle of the night. I mean, it was a common thing. So I'm looking forward to giving my kidneys a rest. They did good work. My liver did great work. They were the stars of the show for sure. The amazing thing with this is the biggest issue that people have is with visceral fat around their organs. That actually causes the most health issues. But when you do a fast, my understanding is that the fat around the liver goes first. So you actually clean up your fatty liver first, which is an interesting phenomenon. There are so many magical things that happen during this process of things that get reset. And I've tried to figure out how to document. And at one point when I had a whole bunch of energy, I'm like, hey, I'm going to do 10 of these things a day and I'm going to schedule out all these posts. And there was a point in time where I was not only coding, but I was writing 2 books at the same time. Like while I was waiting for the AI to respond to a change on the coding, I would write a paragraph. Like it was phenomenal. I hope to figure out how to reclaim that. I hope that is a state that can be achieved without being, 20 days in on a fast.
So if we could just dig into the water, because people are going to have questions, people are going to want to replicate what you're doing. So you said SodaStream. So does that mean that the water was carbonated in any way? Does that mean that it was filtered?
I use filtered water out of my refrigerator into the SodaStream. I usually drink carbonated water, but as the fast went on, I did not want the carbonated water. So it went from, like 2 pumps of the thing for the fizz to by the end, it's the last week, it was not carbonated water. And so, but again, everybody's experience, well, I don't know if everybody's experience is going to vary, but I'll assume people are going to have different experiences, but you just don't want anything other than the purest water. You don't want any flavors. You don't want any textures. Now, you need the other stuff. That's the only part about this that's a bit of a conundrum, because usually at this point, you're so locked in that your body knows what it wants, except in this regard. Your body needs the electrolytes and it needs the salt, and it does not want it. So that's like, this is probably why when this is done in medically supervised settings, they do it through IVs.
Oh, so people would actually get electrolytes or, potassium, magnesium, that sort of thing through the IV if they were in a medical setting. And
Yep.
you just had to go by how your body was feeling. And, when do you think you got really in tune with your body? At what point in the fast?
Pretty early. I mean, when I was doing some of those early podcasts, I was already getting there. And I think, and I'll go back and look at my notes, but I'd say day 14 to 21 was probably peak.
Okay, and so now the fast is ending. Earlier in the podcast, you were talking about what you were eating and resetting your gut bacteria. And you had also said that in 5 days, you think you'll have finished the recovery. And so for the next 5 days, what is your plan, knowing that it might change, but what do you think it's going to be for the next 5? Well,
this kimchi is pretty strong. You were right on that.
I was worried about that.
I'm going to go a little slow on that. That is, I like spicy food, by the way. So, I'll eat an omelet and I'll put 3 habanero peppers in there. It drives my wife nuts because I'm cooking the stuff and she's like, well, at least I'm gaining immunity to pepper spray or whatever. But so normally kimchi is not spicy to me. This is now spicy. So maybe it's actually spicy kimchi. Like, I don't know. I'm in Amsterdam. So I actually don't remember my 37-day fast that much. I mean, people tell me that I was kind of out of it and didn't know what the hell was going on at the end. I don't know how much that was true or not, but I do remember breaking the fast and thinking that I was going to eat one thing, and then what I went for when I went to the kitchen, even though or in my mind, I prepared what I was going to eat. When it actually went to breaking the fast, I went immediately to sauerkraut and pickles. And actually blue cheese. I actually broke a fast with that. Not even while I was waiting for the bone broth, I just jumped into that. That is what I wanted. Now, I believe at that point I had done a water only fast and hadn't been taking salt. So that was a salt deficiency.
Oh,
I do
yeah.
not have a salt deficiency. I can tell you now, I do not have a massive salt deficiency exiting this fast, because this stuff is actually tasting salty. And so almost too salty. So that's a big change. Usually in the past, there hasn't been a 5-day ramp up. Again, I've broken fast with chili. I've broken fast with other stuff. I'm generally pretty cognizant about doing the bone broth, just because I know what minerals deficiencies that I have. So, they're just things that I know that I absolutely don't have, and want to get those in as quickly as possible. But it's very possible that I might be like, all right, well, I'm going to go out for a steak tomorrow. I mean, that could happen. I would not rule that out. It will depend on what my first bowel movement is like. Right.
Well,
so
and you have a big day tomorrow too.
Yeah, I do have a big day tomorrow. So I've got a panel and a talk, and then Zano's having a after party from like 8 to 10, which I'm not going to be able to stay out late for any of that, because then I have to actually create a whole other presentation for the next day. So it's going to be an interesting couple of days. But I've also not needed a lot of sleep. I don't generally need a lot of sleep. So I don't know how all this is going to play out. I also don't know how it's going to play out with my heart rate and walking. That is something that when I did the long fast before, it was in the winter. And so I wasn't doing walks in the winter, but the weather was actually nice in New Hampshire. So I was going for walks every day. But then I told you I would have this thing where I'm like, oh, I got 240 zone minutes. Like, I never get 240. I don't care if I'm lifting weights or if I'm wearing a 25-pound weight vest while going on a walk, I'm never getting those kind of zone minutes. And so I will be curious to see how long it takes for that to recover, and what all is involved in that. You do lose some muscle, and your heart is a muscle. So I don't know what all goes on with that, but you're also in a protective state. So you're not, because a lot of people are like, oh, you're going to lose a whole ton of muscle, and everybody likes to chime in on all this. But turns out your body is a lot smarter than that, so that when you get into this position, you're operating mostly on ketones. I wouldn't do weightlifting while doing this. And I have a whole bunch of theories, but I don't even know how to test them. But about the fact that part of it is that when you're in ketosis, you're reclaiming some amino acids. And so that's why some stuff actually still functions, because you can't get amino acids just by converting your fat. And so you do have certain other functions that you need to have happen, but they were happening. I mean, I wrote about it, and I journaled on this. Day 7, I'm playing volleyball with the kids, and actually better than I would have been 6 months previously. And it was just weird. And then this is the point where it's like, oh, hey, my Ari's like, do you want to play tennis? I'm like, there's no way. I'll die if I play tennis. I mean, if my heart rate's 140 doing a slow walk, then no, I'm not even going to try to play tennis. So that will be the interesting thing to see the recovery. But in the past, I don't remember there being a long ramp up at all. I'm just being more deliberate about it this time, in part because I want to try some new things. I think, the Jack Cruz stuff and everything else, I think there's some interesting things about the timing of eating that I want to play around with. And so some of that is just experimental, but I expect to be, probably in 2 to 3 days, I'll be back to somewhat normal, whatever that is. But then again, I haven't decided what I want my eating to be.
So you've said ramp up a couple of times, but so you mean ramp up back to normal eating, right?
Well, normal eating or normal exercise. So for instance, so the weather here is nice. So if I were in normal mode, I'd probably walk 20 miles a day here through Amsterdam, based on the weather. And I will tell you, based on the fact that it was a 5-minute walk to the grocery store, I can't see that happening. So so I guess what I'm saying is that the disconnect for me is I never walked before during a prolonged fast. So I never experienced this thing with the heart rate. And so maybe there's nothing to it. And then maybe like tomorrow I'll be back to doing normal walking because I was able to get right back into things before. I don't know. But it just seems like it was so, like I went from, even during this fast, doing 18,000 steps a day to then, you could chart, I can see on the Fitbit how much walking I could do it. It's not like I didn't have anything else to do. It's not like I was blocked off because of my schedule or anything. Yeah, I mean, there was a day where it was raining and I wasn't going to go out, but there was just like, yeah, no, I can't. Okay. I did 18,000 steps 3 days ago. Today, going and checking the mail is all I can do. And so there's this like ramp thing, but it might repeat right away. But I do have a sense to be really mindful of my kidneys, in particular, kidneys and liver, but kidneys in particular. The kidneys did a lot of work. They did an exceptional amount of work.
So a while back, when you had completed the 37-day fast, your body mass had greatly reduced, as people would imagine. And you had told me, because I'd asked you, you think you're ever going to try to go for 40? And you didn't think you would be able to because of the body mass. So prior to starting this, if you're comfortable talking about it, because I know people are going to want to know, what was your weight, if you're comfortable? What was your BMI?
I didn't weigh myself. I don't give a shit
Okay.
about that. That's not the point of that wasn't the point of the fast. That's again, and I want to stress, the point of this isn't to measure these data points based on the way this materialistic deterministic medicine works. It's hard to explain. I don't ever want to measure those things. I want to figure out a way to flip the way we even think about health. So I did not measure the thing. Now, did I lose a shit ton of weight? Yeah. I mean, I'm down I probably lost 50 pounds. But that wasn't the purpose. But yeah, I would imagine it's at least 50 pounds. I still probably have an extra 30 pounds to lose. So I'm not at my optimal weight. I'll probably be back to my optimal weight by the end of the summer. But yeah, that wasn't a focus.
So you have to get up and speak at this event, and do your clothes even fit?
I bought new clothes. I had to buy new clothes. I mean, I'm wearing my t-shirts are oversized, but no, I had to buy new shoes and new pants. However, the thing is, this thing with the kidneys and the electrolytes and balancing that is a bigger deal than I thought. Like, again, a few days ago, I was like bloated, like where it's like, no, my waist increased like 5 inches, like that level of bloating. So I don't know. So I might actually have the reverse situation where if that bloating happens, I'm going to have problems with wearing the pants that I just bought. But that is clearly water. But it's an interesting, it's going to be, I probably won't have any problems with it at all. I really do believe that this was just a function of the electrolyte thing. But this also happened on the airplane. Like the airplane was I'm glad I got the other seat, because that was a little bit of that was an uncomfortable flight, even with the flat seat.
Wow.
All right, excellent. So I think we covered, I hope we covered, if anybody's watching this or will watch this in the future, that we've touched enough on the fast itself. And, throughout this podcast, you mentioned quite a number of books and authors and different doctors that you've recommended. If somebody we'll summarize the fast part now. If somebody was going to start, what is the first book or the first doctor that they should follow?
Dr. Eric Berg. I would start with him and I would start with healthy keto. And I want to stress healthy keto, because people jump into healthy and it's like this, I'm going to eat, all these people, I'm going to have a stack of steak and a stack of, he's showing the electrolytes, a stack of eggs and a stack of steak, and that's all I'm going to eat. That's not going to work. Yeah, I mean, so part of healthy keto is I eat like a half a pound of spinach a day. Like you actually are, the whole point behind it is that you need to get a certain amount of protein. You need to get a certain amount of nutrients from your food. And then you need fat. The rest of it is fat. So we've been scared away from fat, but eating fat is actually what makes you feel full. And when you're in ketosis, then if you're feeding your body fat, then your body is already adapted to fat. So you don't feel hungry. You're actually burning it as a fuel source. What happens is people's blood sugar is all screwed up. The insulin levels are all screwed up. So they're always hungry. They're never actually burning fat. And they're constantly dealing with issues related to blood sugar and insulin. And so, but you have to do it in a healthy way. If you don't do it in a healthy way, where you're getting all of the nutrients. So I eat, so I'll have like a 5-egg omelet and a half a pound of spinach, and sauerkraut. Like that's a common meal for me to have on this. But there's a lot of other stuff. Like, so he has thousands of videos. So you can go down, and he does a weekly show. You can go down his rabbit hole for a really long time. But he has videos on every topic that you could imagine. And so you have people that have all these different conditions, and women have different situations. And apparently a lot of people have lost their gallbladders. And I mean, I've learned a lot about things that I didn't realize were things that people dealt with. And it's fascinating to learn about this. And he actually has some interesting supplements and things for this. For instance, having apple cider vinegar is really helpful. And my wife does this. She has apple cider vinegar and lemons, and she makes she has a whole complicated routine with a whole bunch of stuff, but she manages all this stuff properly. And I forgot about the apple cider vinegar. Somehow just in the process that fell away. The other thing is eating nutritional yeast. It's something that you can put on. I put it on spinach, but you can put it on anything. People have a vitamin B deficiency, and nutritional yeast has a lot of different B vitamins. So anyway, start with him, because once you get into, you have to fix your blood sugar first, and you have to fix the insulin levels before you can start doing this longer term fasting. And so the combination of his diet and then the timing and the duration of the intermittent fasting is actually what gives you a platform to be able to do this stuff longer. But he doesn't dwell a lot on the longer term fasting. So once you get through that, then you're going to be looking at the ultimate expert on this is Dr. Alan Goldhamer, because he runs a water only fasting clinic. I can't remember where it is. I want to say New Jersey, but I might be wrong on that. But for years, he has had people that come in for up to 40 days. And these are people with ailments. And he has a bunch of data on this. I wish his data was all fully public, because the other thing is, throughout this fast, this is the great thing about this. Good luck finding an AI. Every AI tells me this is unsafe. You can't do this. I'm like, well, if I'm on day 30 of a fast, what should I do? Well, you shouldn't. You should check with a medical professional. And then when I would ask it more questions, I'm like, okay, show me the data that suggests that there's an issue doing a 40-day. Well, we don't have any data because the independent review board says that it would be unsafe to even have people test doing a 40-day fast. Fuck all this. I mean, literally, and all of the AIs are the same. The only AI that I don't have access to it yet, is Mike Adams' Enoch Health Rangers AI, where it's trained on some data set based on some actual results from long-term fasting. But this guy Goldhamer has apparently thousands and thousands of data points. And it's like most people fix type 2 diabetes. Most people fix blood pressure. Most people fix a whole long list of things. And then you have other surprises in there like MS and cancer and some other situations. But I can tell you from experiencing it multiple times, once you understand what happens with diabetes and how all of this stuff works, yeah, your body will reset if you leave it alone. And provided you refeed out of it properly, you will cure most of the conditions that are driving most of the $4.5 trillion in healthcare in this country, literally through fasting, most of the chunks of it. And so no one wants to talk about it. As I've said before, doctors get between 20 and 24 hours total of nutritional education the entire time they're in medical school, and there is 0 time spent on fasting. The only thing that they might study about fasting is to do a 24-hour fast before doing a surgical procedure. There's literally nothing in their curriculum about fasting. So I said this at the very first episode. This is one of those things, and I'm adamant about this. Your doctor doesn't know anything about fasting, doesn't know anything about how to improve your health. And I'm not saying to listen to me either. I'm saying that you need to actually take responsibility for your own health and start doing your own research, but also not assuming that these people know what they're talking about. And a big part of this, because George, you know I do this, if somebody claims to be an expert, then I'm going to study what it is they study and what their educational background is and what the curriculum is. And if it turns out it's bullshit, then I'm not going to listen to them at all. You should never listen to somebody just because they're an authority or because somebody says. I mean, look at the track record of doctors. I mean, look at the health of most doctors, by the way. I mean, it's kind of, I mean, how many overweight doctors are there? How many, you know, I post those things sometimes, the cigarette commercials, you know, 9 out of 10 doctors prefer this. I mean, they're giving people opioid addictions for lower back problems. Like literally, I can't tell you, the only reason I would go to a doctor is because, you know, if I broke a bone, that's the only place that you can go to. And the only reason it's the only place you can go to is because of laws and accreditation. Doctors are horrible. So I'm adamant about people learning this themselves. But along with that is I didn't just jump into this. And I am not recommending a 40-day fast. Like you have to have a really specific reason to do this. And, you know, and you have to be willing to always be willing to break a fast. Like I said, I would have broken the fast a couple of days ago, but I got back to the hotel and I just slept, and I didn't have the recurrence of the thing with bile. But I would have broken the fast if my body told me that, you know, it wouldn't be able to do this. I've done this on multiple occasions. I've had times where I was trying to do a 14-day fast. I only ended up doing 12. I had the other one where I was trying to do 40. I did 37. It happens all the time. Sometimes your body tells you different signals. So I think the whole point of this is that fasting can help you figure out how to listen to your body, because most of us are completely out of our body. We are not present in our mind or our body because we are programmed not to be. And everybody is looking for ways to sell us things to occupy and take control and deter us from learning about our own innate power in our minds and our bodies.
I just want to confirm something you said earlier. So the entire time that I've known you and worked on different projects, different startups, if ever there was somebody that was said to be an expert in something, you would very quickly research what books that they're reading. You know, back in the day, people would post, you know, the different books, and you would make sure that you consumed all of that information. So if we can just go down that rabbit hole, because people might come across this video because they're interested in fasting and what your experience has been, and now you've helped them to get you know, a high level view of what it's like. But let's give them some background on you. So maybe you're comfortable talking about Tangerine. Maybe you're comfortable about, just as quickly as you can, a summary on who you are, what you've done, and that you're just not somebody that follows an internet fad.
Well, I'm not looking for people to follow me. So I'm not, I don't know. I guess I'm not really trying to like hard sell it. I think that I started writing a book about this between day 14 and day 21. So I may put together a book on this. I mean, I have talked about it in other things. I mean, as it relates to this issue in particular, my parents followed the stupid USDA food pyramid when I was a kid. So growing up, I ate shit. I ate Fruity Pebbles for breakfast. I had school lunches, which, you know, it's like square pieces of pizza and all the shit that they serve at public school. I would eat horrible things. I would have Taco Bell and all this other stuff. And so I gained weight as a kid. And so I've struggled with weight on and off. And when I was a kid, I think the first time we're like, oh, well, you know, why don't we go to the doctor and see what we can do about this? The doctor referred us to a nutritionist, and the nutritionist told me to have a low-fat diet and told me to not have any fat, literally told me to have, because I remember it as clear as day, to eat Snackwell cookies. Actually, it said, because at that point in whatever it was, like the late 80s, early 90s, it's like, that was it, the low fat craze. So you go somewhere and it's like, hey, you know, here's, you know, Frosted Flakes are low fat, no fat Frosted Flakes. And so of course, in doing that, if you have a reduced diet, calorie diet that's sugar, you're going to be hungry all the time, because all they're doing is spiking your blood sugar and screwing up your insulin levels. So of course, those diets didn't work. So I got serious about losing weight when I was 17. Now, of course, I always try extreme things. So I went, you know, I'm at high school. I'm at this, you know, gifted and talented high school in Indiana. It was a residential school on a college campus. So I'm like eating like 500 calories a day, and I'm swimming 1 to 3 hours a day. Like, it was insane. Like, it was just kind of like a, you know, nonstop thing. So lost a bunch of weight. This is when I became vegan. So I have no shortage of determination on this. But again, what happens with this is then get involved with startups and everything else. And so I'm very good at concentrating my energy, but often that part of it goes away. And this is still an issue. So part of the issue with this is, it's like, all right, I can be, here's all the food and here's all this stuff. But then I travel all over the place and meet with people, and eating is part of the social experience. So like the idea that you're going to cut that out of your life, that would actually be a bad thing. That's a net, in overall health, actually having connections with people and being able to share a meal with people is an important part of life. So trying to figure out how to balance that without being a complete pain in the ass is a challenge, but it's something that I have to work on an ongoing basis. Anyway, did my first company, worked on my second company, which was around this weight issue again. And the idea behind the company was actually pretty straightforward. It was to use financial incentives to reward people for losing weight in corporate settings. So actually, I haven't even looked at the stats now, but I'm sure it's still true. Obesity is the largest single cost driver for healthcare. And in fact, at the time, I remember it was something like, if you looked at the healthcare costs and then lost productivity, because if you're an employer, your concern is not only what the medical costs are, but how many sick days, absenteeism, presenteeism, all of these other things. And it turns out it's actually disproportionate for women. Women have much higher obesity related costs. There was a whole bunch of really interesting actuarial information about this. But what I figured out is that if you reward people for create a completely voluntary program, first of all, and you reward people, this is one of our core values, was voluntary. In fact, it's laughable because it's completely, it was completely ideologically aligned with where I am right now. But run a voluntary program that uses financial incentives to reward everyone. So if you're overweight, you are rewarded for losing weight. If you're at a healthy weight, you're rewarded for maintaining a healthy weight. And if you're underweight, which happens in a very small percentage, you actually get rewarded for gaining weight. The whole point was to move people to the healthy range, but then to reward them for maintaining the gain. So I actually structured the financial incentives. The problem, and Weight Watchers, by the way, just filed for bankruptcy. The problem with all of these diet programs is they're all structured around 8 to 12 weeks. And the thing is, what you have to do is you have to get people to change their behavior over a longer period of time. It's not about rewarding somebody for losing weight. It's about rewarding them for maintaining the weight loss over time. That's where you actually see the actuarial savings. And so our rewards were cumulative. The more you lost and the longer you kept it off, the more you would earn. And that was completely aligned with the insurance costs of the employer. So we also promoted, not only was it voluntary, we promoted choice. So we were not prescriptive. We didn't say, Weight Watchers wanted to acquire us. Jenny Craig wanted to acquire us. Everybody wanted to acquire us because they wanted to use our platform, which was based on being voluntary and having choice, and force their own thing and use it as a vehicle. And I refused to sell to any of them because I built the company to solve a problem. And it relates to even what we were talking about earlier about these random control trials. I've got a thing with that too. I had this guy who was on the board of directors of Pfizer who was looking to invest. And he's like, why didn't you get a random control trial on this? I'm like, okay, the whole point of the program is that it's based on integrating the corporate environment, what resources they have available, integrating the information about the nutrition in their kitchen, customizing the incentives for their workspace. What do you want to do? Run a fucking test on like one small element on this for 12 weeks? Anyway, I refused to take his money and told him to fuck off. But the point is, everybody told me that it wouldn't work. They said no one will participate, first of all, and that no one will be successful in the program. So our model, the financial model that I had was like, if we had 10% participate, that was kind of our break-even point. And we were what's called gain sharing the savings. So basically the model was structured, the amount of incentives, I had a whole thing where I'd put in the information about the census of the group, how many employees, gender distribution, run it through this obesity cost calculator, and then test all the incentives based on the rewards, and then we'd predict out the ROI based on productivity and everything else. And so
these were Fortune 500 companies which were contracting the business that you're speaking of to run these incentive programs.
Well, they ended up, we started out with small businesses, and then we were moving up. We had just signed our first couple of Fortune 500 companies when the financial crisis hit in 2008. But we actually had Walmart. I had a week where I was meeting with Google, Walmart, Newell Rubbermaid. In fact, Walmart called me 3 years after we got shut down basically by Dodd-Frank. But the point is, we ended up getting a 60% participation rate. So when I say 60%, it was 60% of the entire company, not just the overweight employees. And we had companies that were saving, our first client was a small manufacturer in Rockford, Illinois, and the amount of money that they were saving was the equivalent of them doing an extra $1 million in revenue. Well, they only did $10 million in revenue. So this was like massive. So they ended up on Good Morning America, and we had another client on NBC Nightly News. And I mean, it was absolutely ramping up, and everybody was shocked by it. And the thing that I learned about it is doctors, none of these people understood the principles of incentives and voluntary and choice. Literally, I would have to explain those things. They don't even know how to look at these things in these terms. And so I could tell you why everything doesn't work in healthcare. They treat everything like a disease. You're a patient. Then they'll give you telephone support. It's like, oh, here, like then they do back to this over testing thing. They'll have Quest Diagnostics come in and give you a blood panel with 80 different pieces of information on it. The problem is nobody knows how to read any of the information. Telling a factory worker their glomerular filtration rate isn't in the right range is not going to help that person improve that metric. We made it fun. We also used team incentives. So we had a combination of team incentives and everything else. And I was getting to the point where I was going to blow it out, where we were going to have companies competing against one another and like the whole thing. Well, again, it worked because of course it worked. Of course incentives work. Of course voluntary works. Of course choice works. We know that works. I mean, it's not like I invented anything amazing, but it was completely unheard of in the healthcare sector. And then it got destroyed by Obamacare, Dodd-Frank, and Attorney General Eric Holder, because our model, what we were doing is we were taking the healthcare savings and distributing those as rewards. Well, the healthcare savings were pre-tax dollars. Obamacare made it so that you can't use healthcare pre-tax dollars for results-based incentives. You can only use it for participation. So in other words, I can't reward you for losing 5% of your body weight and keeping it off. I can only reward you for signing up for the fucking program. So I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm not going to, I guess I had the option, which is I could be like everybody else and make a program that adds to cost, but checks boxes. In fact, I could tell you all kinds of stories about United Healthcare and Aetna and what everybody wanted. They wanted the ability to say that they had something on a checkbox so that when they were competing against whoever it was, they could say, oh yeah, we have a weight loss program, but they didn't care if it worked. So they wanted to buy us to be able to do a check the box thing. And I'm like, no. And then, so anyway, I decided to just shut it down as opposed to.
Was there any particular meeting or company that you were talking to that made you realize it's just better to shut it down?
Oh yes. So we had 900 distribution partners throughout the United States. We worked with HR consulting firms and benefits brokers across the country. So I created a website. We had portals. So if we were working with like Aon or Willis Group or something like that, and when I say I would count the different offices as being different groups. So Wachovia, their benefits group. And so we would have 900 different people coming to our site, and they would fill out the census information, and then we had an automated proposal. So our sales cycle went from 18 months to 90 days because I was able to automate all of the way that we quote the stuff, and because I made it click wrap agreements, which I tell everybody about all the time that we sign without reading all of it. Well, I had no part of that because that took a year out of the sales cycle to not have to have HR go to general counsel, right? Like that truly it's a great trick, but it's not great for all of us. Now, when Obamacare passed, 100% of our pipeline dried up within 2 weeks, 100%. So not only, we were at the point where we were getting, multiple deals every day, and bigger companies. Then I would call the senior people at Mercer and these various firms, and they said, one, your program has these issues that, you're going to have to restructure the program in a way where it doesn't solve the problem in a way that is ROI positive. But then two, they said, employers aren't even going to be looking at this because they're going to be spending the next 2 years trying to figure out how to comply with all the rest of this. So literally 100% of everything dried up. The other thing that happened though, with the existing clients that I had, we were rewarding people. We would go in and measure people every quarter, and then we would pay out the cumulative rewards every quarter. Well, we were using Citigroup for debit cards, for reloadable debit cards. And so we actually had our brand on these orange debit cards, and they'd get reloaded every quarter. Well, because of Dodd-Frank, if you had in excess of $10 billion, a bank with more than $10 billion worth of assets, they assessed some new penalty that forced Citibank to get out of this. So we had tens of thousands of customers all over the place that were in year 2, year 3 of the program, where we now no longer could use their reloadable debit card. And guess what? The process of getting a new debit card provider, you have to go through all the anti-money laundering stuff, all the KYC stuff. That would have been like that's a 6-month process now after this happened. So our backup plan was we were using a check writing service that had been in business for 30 years. So if we can't do a reloadable debit card, we'll do this. Well, our particular check writing service, allegedly one of their customers was involved in working with offshore casinos. And so all of the customers pooled money into one bank account. So the DOJ came in under Eric Holder and seized all of the funds. So we had hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of checks going out to nurses all over the country that bounced, and we weren't even given the opportunity to replace the funds. I was then told that we were guilty and we had to prove our innocence. So we had to spend 6 months. So we eventually had to recut all of the checks, but we didn't even have a check writing process internally. We had to pay again for all of the rewards. Then we had to pay all of the legal fees to actually get the rest of our money back. And of course, at the end of all of this, we can no longer use this check writing service. So at the end of this process, Obamacare says you can no longer operate your business under these rules. And Dodd-Frank says you can't use these payment methods. And so at that point, I'm like, all right, that's enough. That's enough for me. And I mean, it's just something, if you ever want to understand why I'm so passionate about crypto, why I'm so passionate about payments, I mean, this business and my first business, crypto would have solved significant pain points for both of those businesses. But actually, this payment thing was one. I mean, if Obamacare hadn't happened, we would have been able to figure out a workaround. We would have had probably 6 to 12 months of, a lot of operational crappiness, but we would have figured it out. But crypto would have solved. That would have probably increased our overall gross margins by 15% and significantly streamlined our business. And so when I get passionate about it, I encourage people to think about not just payments, but then when you add on top of that tokens, it will transform any business. Because there's payment processing and banking problems for every company in the United States of America, whether people are aware of it or not. So anyway, but the other thing to understand about me, though, is if I start something and I articulate why I'm starting something, I lay out the vision, I'm going to follow the vision. In the vision, unless there's a reason for the vision to change, and the reason for the vision to change is not because the fucking government says that they want only participation trophies. That's not a reason. I will, work till the end on the problem that I'm trying to solve. But anyway, that was that experience. So that kind of ties into this. But I mean, the rest of it, I'm not asking anybody to believe me or follow me. I'll put out information about fasting. You can do whatever you want. I will be talking a lot more, though, and I'll talk to other people like Mark Passio and others about the fact that we need to focus on getting rid of these, like deprogramming ourselves. We need to become aware of the fact that we're programmed. And this is not an easy process because it sucks. You feel like an idiot when you realize, oh my God, my personality is like this because of this. I'm like this because of this. It's hard work. It's not, and the hardest part in the process is to forgive yourself for having gone through it. But if you can do it, that will actually transform you. You can un-NPC yourself. And to me, we have to do that. All of the stuff about, sound money is not going to save the world as long as people are still asleep and people are still NPCs. Sound money and tools like, privacy tokens and everything else are great, but they're only great if people are aware enough and conscious enough to use them. And so I'm going to be, kind of breaking up my time between those things. I'm still going to comment on the stupid stuff that's going on, but at the same time, maybe only in a hope that, is there a capitulation point? And I could rant about a lot of things because I'm starting to feel a little bit better now, but I think that kimchi, got me in a good way. But I just look at this, it's like, do people, I'm going to pick on RFK Jr., but you have this Maha movement that is all about health freedom. And maybe it's a lack of understanding of how government can even work. Why do they think, why not just go boycott public health directly right now? You don't need anybody to do it. Like, we really need to focus on the fact that you can control your own life. You don't need permission from anyone at any point in time. Just do it. And transformation actually happens in an instant. It may take a while to get to that, but it literally, once you become aware enough to make a decision, that is when transformation happens. So I say it all the time, and I said it on the presidential thing, and I'm serious about it. Just boycott public health. Make the decision that your doctor is not in charge of your health, that you are in charge of your health. When you make that single decision, that's game changing. And then you hold that decision, because then your next thing is, let me see what the doctor has to say. It's going to be, what are the different ways? Where can I get information about health? How can I start learning about myself? And it just changes your entire worldview. And I think if we can do that, and I'm increasingly convinced we don't need 2 to 3%. I think 200 to 300 people doing that in the United States would change things. I'm not even exaggerating. I mean, how often do you go through and look at how things work, and you realize it's really only 1 or 2 people pushing things. Everybody else is just following, and they'd follow whatever it is. And so, but I don't think that's not genetic destiny. I don't buy that, people, these are all other limiting beliefs and things that people like to subscribe to. I mean, there's one that's like, well, only X% of the population is libertarian. Like it's somehow it's a hardwired thing. Nothing is hardwired. All of it is programmed. But if you're actually conscious, I don't know if you would sign up to be a libertarian either. That's a whole other thing. But I don't know how to do it yet, but I think the more people, Mark Passio was talking about this. He was talking about it in terms of doing shadow work. His approach is a little heavy-handed. I don't know if he can like tone that. I don't know. The one I don't like I don't like the program, and I don't like the people behind it. But the best approach I've seen is Landmark. It just in the sense that they actually get people to show up, and it's done based on other people that have gone through the program and have been successful. I think that's actually probably. This is something that happens organically. And George, you'll remember that Group Mind movie when Eileen and I came down to Florida during COVID. Remember that 400 slide thing I had?
Oh yeah, you've been on this journey for a while, and you're starting to get some traction with some of the things that you had originally mapped out in that Mind movie.
Well, so I did a mind movie, a group mind movie, and we put down some kind of like affirmations for a group. But where I got caught up in it, and it's still not resolved, because it is. So here's the thing: it is known that you can tap into your subconscious. You can do this by getting into alpha brainwave states. You can do this a whole variety of different ways. You can do it through fasting. You can do it through ayahuasca. You can do it through meditation. There are all these different methodologies. And a lot of people know this. The problem is a lot of the people that form organizations around this turn into cults, and they use it because they want to control people. So when we put together the Mind movie that we spent days talking about and actually being critical about, okay, well, what do we not like about, say, what's happened with the Free State Project, or what we not like about some of our own experiences. We went through, it's like, okay, how do we stop this from happening? How do we stop from this? Then I spent a whole bunch of time, a year, studying cults. And so in the end, I don't want to be, so I want to figure out a way to make these tools available without having to lead it. I don't want to be a leader. I don't want to build a cult. So the challenge is how to get these ideas out there without it turning into this, because I don't know of any examples. I don't know that much. I mean, I've studied religion somewhat, and it almost seems to me like that's what Jesus was trying to do, and then people turned it into a fucking mega church bullshit thing with priests and all of this other stuff. It doesn't seem like he was into churches. He doesn't seem like he was into all of that. So if you see what they managed to do with, so kind of like Bitcoin got hijacked, how can you take a movement to try to help people to get rid of their limiting beliefs and become conscious without it turning into a cult or being hijacked by outside parties? And I still don't have any answers for this. And this is why I'm not doing anything formal, because I refuse to even go down that. This is why when you even said, oh, well, why don't you tell people about your background? Like, I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about the ideas. And these ideas are, me rambling after a 40-day fast. So this is not coherent. There is some coherence to it at some point, but it is the direction to go in. And again, to me, everybody's focused on mainstream and let's get public attention and everything else. It's like, I don't know, man, if you could get 5 people to, unfuck themselves, to me, that would be amazing. That would have a huge impact on the world. But it has to be without the goal of determining what they do once they get into that state, without not trying to manipulate them or program them. All of this stuff. When you look at Scientology, what does Scientology do? They have all this, what do they call it? Recording sessions. So you come in and they document your, basically they start to collect blackmail on you and they use it on you. And so when you're doing this work where you are tapping into your subconscious and everything else, we all have trauma and stuff, and being able to talk about it helps. But like NXIVM, and every time I go and look at one of these things, that gets turned into like a blackmail thing. That's even how secret Skull and Bones and all of these other things. And I'm so sick of that. I like, you know, and it always breaks that way. So it seems like the problem is the mission of the organization, because the mission of these things is always to do this. There's an intent for the organization that is not just making this person become a more conscious person to then just do whatever they want with that, right? And express their own free will, as opposed to, we're going to reprogram you and have you express our will. And so I don't know. I don't have an answer for that, but I think it's a solvable problem. I mean, so there's, I don't know, some way to open source this, some way to do it so that it's not attached to a person and links. So I haven't figured that out. That was 5 years ago. We got distracted by COVID, and then distracted by CBDCs and everything else. And again, for those who haven't heard that, for the reason that I'm doing CBDCs is that literally technocracy is a threat to free will. So you do not have the ability to expand your consciousness, and expanding your consciousness is simply about your ability to exercise and make your own choices. You cannot exercise your own choices in an environment where your choices are actually predetermined for you by technocrats using social credit systems and other things that may get into things like brain implants and everything else. And so literally, if technocracy takes over, then there is no raising of consciousness. Consciousness is determined and capped by technocrats. And as I've said before, the problem with technocrats is technocrats live in a world based on determinism. They live in a world based on Newtonian physics. They live in this world of random controlled tests and everything else. And that's why it's a threat. Now, it's hard for me to express this because it's not easy to understand, but it's all like provable, right? I mean, it's like this stuff it's quantum physics. There's this other thing that, anyway, I'm not going to remember it all now, but it is based on science. It's just not based on the old science that people are taught and the old science that people operate under. So again, this is one of these problems where people have to unlearn 10 things before they can even understand what you're talking about, which is why it's not going to be a mainstream thing, and that's fine. But I still want to figure out how to get kind of the early adopters. But the thing is, Mark Passio has been doing this for 17 years. He's been trying to get people to do this for 17 years. And if you watch some of his last podcasts, he's just ranting. I mean, he's gotten to the point where it's a string of just, you know, he's swearing and calling people idiots and everything. And you know, while I appreciate the frustration, I don't think there's righteous, I view Roger has righteous anger. When I show those videos, you know, where he's talking about Madeleine Albright and 500,000 Iraq, that's righteous anger. And what's under that righteous anger is a love for humanity and a knowledge that voluntary interaction can basically allow people to exercise their free will, and it'll maximize freedom and it will minimize war. But when Passio does it, he says it's righteous anger, but I don't know. I don't think it comes off as righteous anger. And I'm not trying to pick on him because he's working on something and he's really knowledgeable. This all comes down to, I don't have the answer to how to like roll this out. And part of rolling it out, even when we came up with the Mind movie, was to say, kind of like with my company, like there's choice in even how you go about.
I just pulled up the Mind movie, and you know, if you want to describe to people what it is, I'll summarize. It starts off with visuals and binaural beats to get people into, you know, an alpha, beta, theta type state. And the first words that come up on one of the slides, because it's basically like a slideshow, is "I am self-healing."
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's interesting. I wonder how much, you know, maybe I've been operating under that without having watched it in 5 years, but it's powerful because once you realize how you're programmed, and once you realize you can put yourself in the brainwave state to program yourself, then you basically watch your own movie. So instead of watching what Hollywood tells you or watching what politicians tell you, you're literally writing your own thing. And so I put together string of affirmations, and some of them were individual based, some of them were based on the group. So, you know, like a positive, caring, voluntary, I can't remember what the words were. You've got it there.
If you want, I'll read through it.
Yeah, I mean, you can read through some of it.
All right, so it starts off. This is the general one. So this wasn't specific to any one person. This was what we were calling the group mind movie. So I am self-healing. I am continuously improving. So these are the affirmations you were talking about. I am expanding my consciousness. I am co-creating a voluntary, peaceful, caring network. And this speaks to, you know, one of the things that you were very adamant about is you didn't want it to turn into any kind of cult if we went mainstream with it. I am co-creating a voluntary, peaceful, caring network that empowers individualized solutions. I am co-creating a voluntary, peaceful, caring network that shares love and know-how. I am co-creating a voluntary, peaceful, caring network that fosters accountability and integrity. I am co-creating a voluntary, peaceful, caring network that self-learns and evolves. And as you know, as I'm saying this, these are the different slides, and each of the slides has imagery to, you know, enforce the words. I am co-creating a voluntary, peaceful, caring network that grows organically. I am co-creating a voluntary, peaceful, caring network that self-sustains. I am co-creating a voluntary, peaceful, caring network that self-sustains. I said that. I am co-creating a voluntary, peaceful, caring network that is decentralized. Now, think about this, all the decentralization that's coming full circle in your world.
Yep.
And that's essentially it. So basically, you know, what I hope, if anybody just listened to what I said and what the original intent was to, it's about voluntary. It's about making your own choices. It's about being decentralized, and it's about empowering yourself as an individual and taking control of your own health and well-being and consciousness.
Yep. Yeah. So that was 2021. And that was where I was going. And then we got a little bit waylaid, but not. I mean, it is all related, and it all connects, I guess. But this is an adjustment. And again, I think the realization of like not wanting to get into the public discourse part of it is not a winning angle. Because to me, it seems like it's manipulation. You know, and it is manipulation. And I think there are a lot of people that would hold the view that, well, you know, and it comes down to, I mean, and I've also read whatever the 48 laws of power, and I've read the Prince, and I've read all that other stuff. And I understand it, but I think that that's a pretty shitty way to live on the basis of manipulating people. And I know people study this stuff, and here's the game theory, and how are we going to do all this? I think that it's kind of it's not a great approach. It's not going to engender a very positive future. So anyway, I think that I still don't know how to do it per se, because the other thing that I've found is, and I found this with Tangerine as well, is there is a certain point where if you offer too much choice, one of the things we were talking about in 2009 with Tangerine was trying to use AI to help match. So while we were offering choice, we were going to use AI to help match based on data, diet and health programs for people based on their individual situation. And so it's kind of like with this, different things work for people. Passio, last time I talked to him, I think when he was on the show, or maybe it was afterwards, I think there's almost a certain degree of, maybe I'm wrong with the assessment. I almost feel like we're becoming less conscious. I think people are, I think because of social media, because of technology, I think technology has not been helpful in raising consciousness. In fact, it's made it so that people can be programmed on a more hyper-targeted basis. And so even when I look at Brian Johnson, I talk about that again, and all of this, now I'm going to do 600 biometrics and everything else, everything to avoid getting in touch with yourself. Like if you're in touch with yourself, you're conscious about your eating, if you're grounded, if you're walking in the ground, you're getting the sun, you're aligning with circadian rhythms. Like if you're doing all of that, I don't need a watch. I don't need a bed to tell me this. I don't need tests to tell me this, but we're moving towards, now we're going to be putting nanotechnology in our bodies. And isn't all of this going to be great? And I think that our lack of understanding enough about ourselves prior to applying technology is a disastrous situation that leads to actually the reduction of consciousness. And so I think that now I don't know what that means in terms, but I would say I do think we are becoming less conscious. And then there are people that'll say, and this is to my point on this, that'll say, well, yeah, but look at how many people woke up because of COVID. And I think this is the Plato's cave thing again, where it's like, well, okay, they're looking at the shadow, this piece of it. Yes, maybe they're not going to be able to do this particular exact thing again, but they'll just change the angle of the reflection of the primary source of the light, and then boom, it's going to hit all over again. And because people aren't aware of what's going on at a fundamental level, they're going to fall for some other bullshit. I mean, look at how we've accepted Real ID under the Trump administration. I mean, Real ID, I guess it's not fully in effect, but May the 7th, Real ID, and now the stablecoin bill, stuff that a year ago, all you had to do was change the name of it. Instead of calling it a CBDC, you call it a stablecoin, and people buy it because they don't understand what's actually going on. And so I don't think people are more awake. I think people are awake about a very specific thing, but it's not generally applied. They're not awake about being awake. They're not really conscious. They're just being programmed by a different group of people on a particular slice of the topic. Now, Passio was talking about, and I mean, this may be true, that it's hard to get in touch with your limiting beliefs and your trauma. A lot of it is so suppressed that, and people push that pain away so much that it's hard to even get it to come to the surface. And so this is where stuff like ayahuasca kicks in. And the last time I talked to him, he was kind of like, yeah, I mean, if we're going to actually have any shot at this, people need to do more. They need to do something to jumpstart. And maybe that's true, but I will tell you, I think given that we also have a health crisis, an obesity crisis, an insulin crisis, I actually think, even rather than needing to go through the ayahuasca process, I think fasting may be that springboard to kick people into a process. Now, so let's say people went through a 7-day fast. Is there something that you could do during that 7-day fast as a group? Is there a structured program that you could do to help guide people through not just the physical aspects, but as people are starting to become aware of food, the world around them, and everything else, a way to help guide them there and to help people communicate and talk to one another in that same state that will actually help the group raise consciousness through that experience. That's one thing that I'm thinking about. And again, so not only do I not want to, I know that having leaders doesn't work, whether it's OSHA. I've never seen a thing with a leader like this that doesn't end up bad. But then the other thing is, it is about having those individualized solutions. So I could say, well, yes, fasting, but I'm more interested in helping people say, well, hey, here's fasting, here's ayahuasca, here's meditation, here are a whole bunch of different things, and having a way to use, technology, AI, whatever it is, to help match the person. And you probably end up doing I've done all of it. I've done ayahuasca, I've done meditation, I've done all of these things, and it's a never ending. It's not a one and done. But the most important thing is to make people aware of all of this to begin with, because most people are not aware that they are already programmed. Just getting through that first step is the most important step. Once they get through that, then you can help them along the way. Again, hopefully in a way that's not prescriptive, that doesn't have a leader attached to it, but where people can help each other. And so anyway, I'll throw that out there. I'll be talking about this more, and then just shooting out other ideas. I don't know how much, I don't expect a lot of people to be interested in this, so, like I said, but those that are, again, yeah, there you go. We got one. That helps. And then, like, literally, then as you change, the people around you see it, and then they become interested in it, and then it works organically, as was discussed, organically, self-sustaining, all of that other stuff. And I'm not saying that my movie was perfect. It's not. I'm sure it can be better, but it tried to address.
Well, it addresses in there constantly be continuous improvement, right? So we're 2 hours and 40 minutes into this podcast. I'll make the observation that it seems like your energy has picked up. Now you began eating. Like, did you start eating right at the beginning of the podcast, or just start eating, right? So how do you feel right now?
I feel really good right now. I actually feel very energized. My brain and mouth aren't fully connected yet, but I do feel much better. So
okay. So if I could just steer this in a bit. So if somebody comes across this because they're starting to, type in fasting, and they see 40-day fast for Roger Ver, and they're clueless as to who Roger Ver is, how you might have come to know him, why you did a 40-day fast to bring attention to his plight. Like, could you just summarize who Roger is, what he's going through, and why it matters to somebody that is not in the crypto space?
Sure. Well, we have a webpage at daylightfreedom.org. You can click on Fast for Roger, and I'll give you a couple of reasons it's important. There's the official kind of reason, because it's, so the point here is this is a guy who's been promoting voluntarism for like 20 years. Basically the ideas that we've been talking about all night. I mean, Roger's basically a ideal leader in effectively promoting and implementing these ideas. And he's been doing it through cryptocurrency, through Bitcoin as Bitcoin Jesus. He was the first investor in Bitcoin related companies, exchanges. But he's done more than that. I mean, he's supported things like the Brownstone Institute. He supported Ross Ulbricht's legal fees. He promoted funded antiwar.com. So just a wide range of things related to this. Now, why everybody should be concerned about it is that he was targeted for his political beliefs. By the way, political beliefs that are more aligned with the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution than how any of the politicians or political parties are acting today. He was first imprisoned for selling fireworks in the late 90s. So imagine this is a guy, the late 90s, .com's booming. He's like a teenager or 20, whatever it is. And he's making a lot of money selling fireworks on eBay. This sounds like a Norman Rockwell poster. It doesn't sound like somebody who should be going to prison. This sounds like somebody that you should hold up as an example of the kind of enterprising young person that you want. I mean, what do we have now, right? Who are the people doing things and creating things? So he got punished for that. And he got punished for that because he was a libertarian candidate for office. And he spoke out against the ATF, who murdered children, which is true, and he talked about it in very explicit terms in a debate against a Republican and a Democrat or whatever in a political contest. And so somebody in the audience was from the ATF, and then so they saw that his fireworks, that's under the realm of the ATF, so we're going to go after him, we're going to target him. So he spent time in prison. He was emotionally abused by the guards, and so he decided to leave the United States, which, if you're a Norman Rockwell poster and this is the kind of punishment you get, what do you expect? So he leaves right away after his thing. He has a hard time getting citizenship somewhere because he's got this conviction on his record. But then stumbles on Bitcoin in 2010 and actually studies it so much, gets so excited about it, he has to be hospitalized. He didn't sleep and literally was studying it. saw the applications for it and literally started taking out ads promoting it. I mean, with no, like, not necessarily having a financial interest in it, because he thought that it's something that everybody should learn about because it can solve some of the horrors that happen because of central banks and this fiat money. And so none of this Bitcoin revolution that's going on right now would have happened without him. He invested in all of this stuff. Then he was the first investor in XRP, and he's invested in other crypto projects. And he's continued to be committed to the use of these alternative currencies as a way to stop central bank tyranny. And he's always been committed to the truth. So people should be concerned because of the tactics that the government used to stop him. They, first of all, the DOJ lied to the grand jury to even indict him to begin with. They claimed that he was being fraudulent with his taxes, even though communications and documents showed that he actually hired multiple consultants and did everything that he could to follow the law, because he knew based on his previous run-ins that they were going to go after him and scrutinize him. So they didn't show that to the grand jury. And so the grand jury indicted him under false pretenses. They arrested him in a country, Spain, and threw him in a prison where his fellow libertarian friend, John McAfee, was also arrested and died in that same prison, which I consider additionally a form of torture. I think that was done deliberately to further frighten him, to further put pressure on him. Throughout this process, the IRS raided his lawyer's office and his own office armed, violating his right to attorney-client privilege. They violated his right to effectively rely on counsel by the fact that he followed the advice, and then they didn't explain that to the grand jury and indicted him. Then he's been stuck in Spain now for 378 days, awaiting extradition, fighting extradition. Then the DOJ tries to claim that he is a fugitive because he's fighting extradition. So they basically consistently violated his constitutional rights. So everybody should be concerned about this. But the real reason I'm concerned about it is the video that I played at the beginning. When you see that righteous anger and when you see how passionate he is about this, there are so few people in the world that actually care about anything and that are passionate and are willing to actually take action. And this is something that he's done at great expense to himself financially, at great jeopardy to his freedom, and even throughout it, he's still, while being detained in a foreign country, been promoting the use of peer-to-peer digital cash. He wrote a book, Hijacking Bitcoin, trying to explain to people that this project that people are now buying and calling digital gold and putting their savings in and trying to get taxpayers to use taxpayer theft for, and using civil asset forfeiture to pump the price. He wrote a book exposing that at great personal expense. He's been mocked, he's been ridiculed, he's been sued multiple times. So they're trying to extinguish that flame. And that we can't allow to happen.
Agreed. Thank you once again for doing this. Thank you for sharing everything you have along the way. And, known you for a long time. And I've always known you to fight the good fight. I can't tell you how many times I've been in rooms with you where others were about to give up principle, and you would rally them to stick to the principle of the project, whatever that was. It seems like you take on bigger and bigger fights, and I really hope for Roger's sake this one comes to fruition. If you were going to say one thing to anybody in the Trump administration right now, what would that message be related to Roger?
I think the message would be that America is not going to lead the world in crypto or lead the world in innovation or technology if Biden is going to build a cross and his administration is going to crucify Bitcoin Jesus. It is completely against everything that the administration is saying that it's trying to do strategically. You can't take the giant upon whose shoulders all of this was built and then allow the lawfare created under Biden to continue to persist. And look, I'm trying to be, I'm not great at being diplomatic on this stuff at this point. I used to be much more diplomatic. There's a certain point where we kind of crossed the line with this. I mean, I endorsed Trump specifically on the Ross Ulbricht issue and on this issue, and he said he was against lawfare. And so let's just say I'll still give him the benefit of the doubt, but we're getting to the point now, 378 days into this, where it was Biden's problem. It's now his problem. And it's a problem that needs to be addressed because it is the single worst Biden crypto lawfare of all of it. I mean, we're talking about 109 years in prison. We're talking about a life sentence for a guy on charges that were fabricated, on charges where his constitutional rights were violated. There's no one else in crypto facing a life sentence. All of these other cases have been dropped. And this is a guy who has a pristine record in terms of being principled at promoting what should be make America great values. So it's an absolute travesty if this continues. Now, I can only imagine that, the AG has a lot of stuff on her desk and a whole bunch of other things, but, this needs to get resolved because what foreigner is going to want to come to the United States if this is the way that you treat somebody that created an industry and left for good reason? Let's be clear, Roger was originally targeted by Clinton for calling out Janet Reno, and then was additionally punished by Biden under Executive Order 14067. So there's been a claim made that, by Elon Musk that membership has its privileges. Well, if you hold real American values and this is how you get treated, why would you stay in this country? He shouldn't be penalized for this. His administration, Trump's administration, should be saying, what can we do to entice people like Roger to come to America or stay in America? Not hold them up as an example for what? How how we violate the Constitution, how we violate people's rights, how we punish people who are successful at taking innovation. There's no good precedent being set here. And the only issue is, and the only reason that it might not be dealt with is because the propaganda and censorship that Rogers faced is so severe that people just haven't heard the full story. So it's important that they hear the full story. But the short version of it is there is no American leadership in crypto if Roger is punished in this way for these non-crimes.
Thank you.
Well said, Aaron. Well said. Thank you.
Yep. So yeah. So anyway, this was fun. We ended up getting 1,500 people. I'll tell you. So Sal would have retweeted this. A lot of the people that would have retweeted this or watched are actually here in Amsterdam, probably asleep. So that's kind of an ironic thing that I'm here in the hotel doing this. I don't know how coherent the beginning of this is, but I will say that, again, coming out of this, I'm going to be doing a lot of different things and reprioritizing. I will spend the next 30 days sharing content about the things that I've learned. And it's not just the eating stuff, because the eating stuff, again, I've already done keto, but I will share some of the stuff. It's kind of like a whole variety of things. Things like, we have antiperspirants that have aluminum in them that we put under our armpits, which causes Alzheimer's. We put carcinogenic sunscreen on our skin, and then we're told we need to avoid the sun when we actually need the sun. There are so many things, and if I put together a book, by the way, it's not going to be like this in-depth, a bunch of text. It's going to be a bunch of tips. It's like really easy things. That's one of the things I learned about at Tangerine is we did a daily health tip of the day, and that was one of the things people liked the most were just these email single tips. But I want to throw a lot of that out here because our, not just diets, but anything that I can do to help wake people up about a variety of different programming that are individual things that people can do, I'm going to be doing that over the next 30 days. So I'm just going to be very slow and gradual about coming out of this fast, not because it's necessary, but because I want to retain the awareness captured through the fast and figure out how to not slip out of it. It's easy to slip out of it. It's easy to get tied back into the programs that you're in. I mean, this is not there's no single solution here. This isn't oh gee, you've achieved nirvana or whatever. This is about actually becoming truly aware and an active participant in your life and not being an NPC at all times. And that's not easy. I slip in and out of it as well. And then you realize there's other stuff that's unresolved. So you may think that, oh, well, I learned this about myself and I've let that go, and only to find out, oh, hey, there's a well here, and let's keep on going. And by the way, that's fine. Nobody should be embarrassed. We all have this. The other thing I would say is that it's also the appreciation that everybody is going through this exact same thing in different ways, but it's the same general process. And so not to judge people, there's a and this goes back to the broader part of it. And I'm not great at this at all times. It's easy for me to get pissed off at things, but it is to be loving. The more you can sustain a loving state where you look at somebody, it's like, okay, yeah, this person's just going through this. It's not a reason to judge them. It's a recognition that this is where this person is. That's a very helpful thing to be able to do. And it's easy to snap into these other programs. And it's also very easy, based on how our identities are built, based on our own traumas, that you end up projecting and judging people based on that. So the more you can become aware of that, and yeah, I can do a whole other thing about the importance of breathing, just breathing before you do any activity as a way to make yourself aware of it. As I said, all of this information has been kind of verbal diarrhea, and I've studied this and I've tried to put this together in a whole variety of ways, and I don't have it in a very coherent way yet. And maybe I'll write a book, not necessarily with the idea of publishing a book, but just to organize some of the thoughts and see if this resonates with people. And again, I don't have an agenda for it other than to help other people raise their consciousness. There isn't and I don't want to have an overarching agenda. And so part of the reason that this isn't more developed than it is because I've been nervous about that. And I've been kind of trying to study and figure out, well, I mean, let's face it. In theory, religions were supposed to do this. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe religions were always malicious. I mean, I know that people will find that to be offensive, but I mean, organized religion, I'm not saying that there's no God. I'm not saying that at all, but I am saying that you can study organized religion. As George said earlier, I study things, and you just study how these books were published, who edited them, and then you actually study the history of how churches work and everything else. It's like, that is not, whatever God's word was, that has nothing to do with this editorial process and this structure and these incentives. And so you can kind of figure that out. But the more illuminating point is that I don't see any examples of where anybody's actually figured this out, which is why it's a good kind of complicated challenge that I would like. But it's going to require some really out of the box thinking. And maybe this is one of these things where we have this the technology that we have, the decentralization and some of these other things allow for experimentation that's never been possible in human history before. So maybe there's a way to have a breakthrough on this. But just like the way Bitcoin was hijacked, we have to worry about projects being hijacked, movements being hijacked, right? I mean, you know, I'm in the Free State Project movement, and it's how many, everybo's always like, is this guy a Fed? Is this person a Fed? You go into any of these movements and, you know, look, the authoritarians are very good at, like Biden wasn't good at putting together a CBDC, but he's the world's greatest at lawfare. I mean, look at what he's done to people, smart people, capable people, competent people. He just fucked up their lives and just threw people through an absolute torture chamber. And you know, he didn't create anything, but these people are really good at that. They're good at disrupting things that well-intentioned people create. And so I guess I have a heightened sense, you know, it's one of those things where how many, you know, if you're in a liberty movement and then you're in crypto and then you're in this and this, it's like, yeah, okay, there's probably a good reason to have some sensitivity to it. But having a sensitivity to it doesn't necessarily give you a solution to it. It just gives you a heightened sensitivity. So anyway, I don't even know how to throw out or ask or start to get input on something like that. I don't even know how to frame the question yet. But, you know, George, as I said earlier, maybe day 5. I'm feeling better, but I'm definitely not at my day 21. I don't know how this talk is going to go tomorrow, but you know, it'll be interesting. I'm glad that there are at least some that you guys are on here, and there are other people that are listening to this. I know that there are people that are interested in this. And again, my expectation is not, not only would I be surprised, I have no expectation that this would be mainstream for all the reasons that I described. It doesn't need to be, but to me, it would be a lot more rewarding to focus on this. But, you know, I mean, even think about this with my own kids. Like we're at a point where, you know, I always encourage them to follow whatever it is they want to do in life, to not do a plan B. I find this, when you chart how people get into this fallback plan, okay, well, I've got to go to college and I've got to do this and we've got to do this. Like my daughter wants to be a dancer, and, you know, I think my ex-wife might be like more on the inclined of, well, you know, you should do something more practical, or, you know, you should have a fallback plan. And I think that you should never have a fallback plan. You'll have nothing but regret if you do the fallback plan. And if you're putting I think as a society, and I've said this multiple times, most of the things that we do are fallback plans. People have 401ks and invest in things they don't believe in as a fallback plan because somebody else told them how to do it, because they've even outsourced thinking about the problem. They go to work at a job they don't like, and then they take 20% of that money and they give it to somebody else to make decisions, and they don't know anything about the people making the decisions, and they don't even know what the decisions are. So they're basically capping and taking 20% of their productive energy and giving it to somebody else. That is outsourcing your free will. That is giving up your agency, not even realizing you're giving up your agency. But that's just one area in which you're doing it. And then people are doing it in all of these other areas. Well, guess what? When everybody does this, then you actually have a world where we have companies like Pfizer, we have companies like BlackRock, and we have incentives that are now structured because people, while not being awake, actually gave all their energy to this, not even realizing they were giving their energy to it, but because it was a fallback. So if everybody's giving 20% of their thing that they don't want, that there's their fallback, and they're giving 1% of the thing that they do want, then we have a whole world that is people's plan B. So I want to try to figure out I would like to figure out a way to be able to communicate that to my kids. I mean, I communicate it directly, right? But at the same time, but it's not just to them. I want it for everybody's kids. It's not even like, I don't believe in these, I want to build an empire for just my kids. The whole world is a better place. Everybody should have access to their free will. There's no scarcity of people's ability to exercise their own choices. There's no natural scarcity to it. And so, but it's tough. It's tough. People, everybody's programmed. Again, everybody's programmed. And I'm not saying I'm not, but I definitely keep working on it. I'm not doing another 40-day fast though. I'm not getting it any more of this with a 40-day fast. I think I'm going to vary it up a little bit. I will say I've not found, and I'm sure somebody's done it, I have not found anybody else that's done a 40-day fast that wasn't medically monitored. So, and you know, and and I'm not saying this like, oh, wow, look at how great this is. I'm actually saying this because I was trying to find information at certain points when I'm like, who do you talk to when this thing happens, right? There isn't anybody to talk to, including a doctor, because again, a doctor will not have, the first thing the doctor is going to say is, well, you should have never done this, or you should have only done this if it was medically supervised to begin with. And I couldn't have medically supervised it because I don't know anything about it. So, so this is an interesting process, but I think there will be more stuff. There's more stuff that I learned and that I can't remember right now or articulate. But it is rewarding because there are like major breakthroughs. So, and I think based on what George said about the group mind movie, I think it's pretty clear that I've been living that group mind movie for the last 5 years. And even though I don't watch the mind movie anymore. Now, there's another part that happens with all of this. You do these things, you do these meditations, you do all of this different stuff, but then what really happens is at some point you don't need any of that anymore. You just are that. You are in the state of being that. That's actually, so that's one of the other, so a lot of this stuff, these things can be crutches where people are like, oh, I'm meditating 5 hours a day, I'm doing this. And that really isn't what it's all about. It's actually learning how to just become aware and get yourself into a particular state. And you don't need special rituals once you learn it. Once you learn what a state feels like and how to get into it, then you don't need all the ritual. Anyway, I could go with a whole bunch of random stuff forever, but I know it is, God, what time is it? 2:30 or something? 2:30 here, 3:30?
At what time, how many hours before you have to get on stage?
It's 6 hours right here. Yeah, well, whatever. My first
Aaron,
thing,
how can we help you? How can we support you on this journey? And what can we do for you?
I don't know. I think just give your feedback and input as I'm trying to structure some of these ideas. If you can do that, obviously with Roger, you know, again, I'm kind of I'm skittish, but so here's the thing. I could go do a whole bunch of interviews. Now that I've actually done the fast, like the fact that the Wall Street Journal found the fast and interviewed me about it, I could probably make a whole big deal and go talk to a bunch of people. I don't think it's the right thing to do because Roger is pretty far along in the process, and I'm more concerned about doing him damage than actually helping. So I'm not going to do that. But what I think we can do is try to get people to his hearing on June the 23rd in LA. So that is one thing that we can do on that. And then I'll have to think, and maybe we can talk about it next time, because obviously I have a lot of thoughts and they're really unstructured. I should probably show the group mind movie again. I really need to, well, I haven't even had time to digest the fast. I mean, I haven't had time to digest or reflect on any of this because the last 10 days I've been in a really not great state. So I just need time to actually get a little bit of internal clarity, and then we can have another discussion, and then I'll maybe even be more able to ask for input or help in a more useful way. Because right now, again, there's a lot. So much happened during the fast. I mean, now that I'm realizing, you know, I went off into a whole bunch of different paths studying, you know, light medicine. I ended up studying a whole variety of different things. How much of it turns out to be useful or not, I don't know. But that when I said like that 1 week was 6 months worth of work, that is true. There's no doubt about that. Now I have to go back and make sense of it all and see if I can put it to good use. But yeah, I also think if you know others that this is going to be a person to person thing. This is not going to be it's not only is it not mass market, it's the kind of thing if you try to get mass market it, you'd get more ridicule or hate. You'll get a lot of these things conflict I've studied religion at a surface level, and so I'm definitely not an expert in religion, but I know a lot of these ideas fly in the face of religion, which isn't to say that religious people won't benefit from it, or that I think if anything else, it's actually really aligned with their true religious beliefs, not the dogma that they've been given. But it's really hard to break through to be able to get that message. So I don't know enough now about how to identify people to talk to about it. I guess we should just get an initial group together of people that are interested in this and just start having a chat. That's probably the best thing. And again, I am fully capable of completely structuring something, and I have every bit of restraint from doing that at all. And I have for 5 years, and I continue to have. So some of this is going to be a lot of figuring out, maybe even from a technical perspective, how do you take some of these ideas and get them out there in a way that is decentralized and that solves for some of these problems, but that is not so technical and not user friendly, right? I mean, this all comes back to the same thing. It always comes back to, there's got to be a way to make this easy for people, but that also has these other attributes. And we've failed on the easy to use. It's actually part of my talk tomorrow about, it's only a 20-minute talk. So my actual talk, the hard part about my talk for tomorrow is editing down the talk. That's the like, it's kind of like, okay, what am I going to talk about for 20 minutes? I could talk about one slide of the thing for 20 minutes. But the basic premise is that privacy coins are the solution to CBDCs, stable coins, and that more broadly, CBDCs and stable coins are just, they're going to centrally tokenize all of our assets and use it as a complete control system. So it's actually a 4-alarm fire. And the only solution to it is privacy. But we need privacy that is easy to use, but it has to be, it's not just privacy coins. We actually have to have solutions for things like the stock market. We need to have solutions for not just money, but all of the other things that they're trying to centrally tokenize. We have to have alternatives for as well. And it's urgent. That's basically the core message in 20 minutes. I've got to figure out a way to tie in a whole bunch of concepts, and that it has to be user friendly. Like yes, in the EU, they are banning privacy coins by 2027, outright banning them. Now, of course, good luck, right? But at the same time, if we aren't completely aligned, we don't have to be aligned on building this solution, but we have to be aligned on the problem. I have been on calls on X Spaces with people that are OGs in crypto. And literally a topic will be, what do you think about stable coins? And people are like, stable coins are great for adoption. Or somebody will say, well, we kind of screwed up on Bitcoin. We screwed up on medium of exchange, but we still have a shot with DeFi. If we don't have the ability to engage in voluntary trade outside of this centralized system, it is the loss of free will. Those are actually the stakes. So this defeatist position that, well, yeah, Bitcoin was hijacked, but we're going to go over here and do this now. That will not work. You're not going to be able to do a carve out. And in fact, the legislation and everything that's already going on so you've now put yourself in a small box, and you've got a big boot that's hanging right over it. So that isn't going to work. And so my goal, I don't know if I'll be lucid enough, but is to try to get people to realize, in the context of Roger, because I'm playing a Roger clip in the beginning, but we need the Roger energy from 2012, and we need Roger. But we all need to remember what this was all about. That this was about stopping this central tyranny. But it's worse than it was. When Roger was first talking about this, yes, we had wars and everything else, but now we're talking about they're coming for our free will. That's a bigger problem. That is literally an existential problem for everyone. And I will tell you, nobody is focused on this. Nobody is focused on this at these crypto conferences. And I hear it time and time again. So I don't know if this is an answer to a question, but if we can raise awareness, I've been trying to raise awareness about the fact that technocracy exists. Most people don't understand what technocracy is. It's a threat and it's on a fast track. And if we aren't working on solutions for that, if we're off working on little side projects and we're celebrating the fact that, CBDCs are being used for adoption, then we're screwed. So I've been trying to get that message out. I mean, I've reached some people, but I will say that I'm really grateful for, and I know you and I had a conversation a couple months back about what the progress was going on with Zano. And now we have a marketplace, we have a privacy stable coin, we have a place that you can buy gift certificates. We've got, confidential layer coming. So now there are actual real things. And so I'm really grateful for that. But people have to start using this. People have to start engaging in day-to-day trade using these tools, or we're going to have a real problem. And lighting a fire under people to do that, to actually build, as opposed to just speculate, has been so far impossible.
I'm going to put a little bug in your ear. I think that people are concerned about AI and the loss of jobs, the loss of income, the loss of sense of purpose.
I'm listening to you. I got to grab a water. I'm listening.
Problem. The sense of purpose and that could be lost to AI and robotics, and that is fast approaching. And while I don't like fear as a motivator, there may be a reason or a need, shall we say, or a way to grow adoption to the cause, to fight the governments that are working against us and technocracy, but is maybe alternative income sources that run parallel to fight against the loss that they're going to have as AI takes more and more jobs. And maybe that's a way that we can couple that. But the last, as soon as you talk about those things, and then everyone started talking, oh, well, this is a scam. Or they're bringing up a scam or building a scam. But I'm talking about maybe that's going to be a couple, a way to, I don't know, grow the army to fight against the technocracy. That's just a thought that I've been having for a while now. And obviously with the use of, Xano and Monero and others.
Yeah, I think certainly the ability for people to earn. One of the things I like about the Xano marketplace is that people are posting jobs. So in essence, are projects. You can earn this many Xano for doing this. I think people coming up with new businesses, new business models, new ideas where they're being paid directly in crypto, and an ecosystem starts to emerge around that. All of that I think is great. I think you're right. Maybe people are concerned about AI. They should be concerned about AI to a certain degree. I'm torn by. I've mentioned this before. I think the fact that I could build a point of sale system without needing a dev. Now, admittedly, I've run tech companies, and I know you have to know what to ask, and you have to have a lot of knowledge to be able to do some of it back and forth. But you don't have to fully be able to code. But it's empowering, but it's a big threat to devs. And at the same time, and this was where the UBI thing becomes. The productivity gains are going to be so immense that I actually do think that we're going to be in an abundance situation, not a scarcity situation. And the question is how is that abundance distributed? That is an actual. These are actual problems that I don't have an answer for. I know people have answers that are not great, but when you look at the proliferation of robots doing manual labor plus the application of technology and everything else, we're going to have a $500 quadrillion economy. And I think the bigger problem now, people won't perceive this as the problem. People will perceive the problem as being that their job's going to be replaced. I think the bigger problem is going to be what is people's sense of purpose going to be when they have been given the limiting belief that their only value is as a cog in an economic wheel. If that is taken away, and more importantly, their curiosity about who they are and why we're here has been zapped, or it's been outsourced to organized religion, then that's going to be a whole level of, it's an existential crisis. Well, it's a metaphysical crisis, I guess. I think that's coming too. So
my personal experience so far is I feel like I onboard people to various AIs and that sort of thing. And what I've been experiencing is a boost in people's creativity and their entrepreneurial spirit. Because whereas a limiting belief for them would be like, well, I don't know who to talk to, I don't have money to hire somebody to do something, I can very quickly onboard them to using their existing knowledge and then enhancing their ability to become productive. And I'm starting to see that in multiple people that I'm close with. It's awoken their creativity, and in others, it's woken their entrepreneurial spirit.
Well, I think that's happening now, but once agentic AI moves to the next level, then that's going to be then what it is that people are experiencing with respect to their creative use of the technology, that will become automated. What that process is, the way that they're interacting with the tools. But nevertheless, that will create a new, again, there's how far does this go and where does it go? But some of the agent stuff where it's like, okay, you type in a thing, it's like, here's my idea, and it doesn't just create the business plan, it actually creates the website, throws it on the server, creates the marketing plan, buys the ads, like runs the whole thing. And that's happening now. That by the end of this year, if you look at what's going on with these agents, and now there's a new consortium of like companies like Salesforce and others that are coming up with their own protocol for how agents will interact with each other, then it's like, then that's next level. But I hear what you're saying. I mean, I feel the same thing. I can do a whole bunch of stuff now where it's like, I kicked out 64 memes about Roger's case in like 2 hours or 3 hours using ChatGPT. And the images, a lot of them are really good images. Like the artwork is really good. I'm like, that would have taken me months. I probably couldn't have done it at all, actually. I mean, imagine being somebody that's spent your whole life learning that, Adobe shortcuts. That's an unfortunate right. Situation. But yeah, for now, I think people do like it, but there's going to be, it's going to skew to the top performers on this, the top people that can, that are at the top of the game, connecting agents and doing all this other stuff are going to have like 1,000x productivity impact over the next rung. But again, maybe this just creates more economic opportunity. The question is, where does it end? And then what happens when, when somebody has all the robots and then, they have a $10 trillion company in 6 months? And how does that affect a whole variety of things? I don't know. I don't know what the answers are. I still think AI is good, but I worry about AI being this technocratic, deterministic thing as well, and not like we should be building an AI on quantum principles and not on something else. It's a similar problem. AI could be really great, and nobody ever has to work again. And then what do we do under that situation? Or AI could turn into a control system for technocrats. And I don't know. I also increasingly don't care. Like so it's like, all right, I'm part of the Free State Project, and then I think about network states, and I'm like, I don't really care about being a part of any of this. I've been thinking a lot about, there are a lot of people in New Hampshire that are fighting over stuff. They're fighting over zoning and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I understand the arguments, on both sides. I mean, they want to get rid of even local control. So in other words, you have a piece of property, you can put whatever you want on it. And then there's a group of people that are like, well, wait a minute, we have local standards for this, and people bought their property on the basis of what these rules were from a zoning perspective, and this whole thing is going on. And I'm just kind of like, my kids are probably not going to stay in New Hampshire, and I'm like, am I gonna like fight to the death over any of this shit? Does any of it really matter? Am I really passionate about any of it? And I'm not. I'm intellectually intrigued by network states, but I'm also not like yearning to go out and join one. I know that's not a very productive answer, but it's true. I'm actually getting to the point where it's like, yeah, well, whatever. It is what it is. And
Alan Watts did a talk about the chosen ones kind of divorce themselves of this world and separate themselves. They tend to be alone, loners. Not that they aren't, extroverts or anything. It's just that they've moved past that. Not that they're above anyone else. It's just that they've moved on. And it's something that I've been wrestling with recently. And another reason for me maybe to, start getting into a fast to try to tap into some spirituality for some answers.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Like this has started to happen to me over a period of time. And then during the fast, I was just kind of like all this stuff, and people are contacting me and what do you think about this? And I'm like, I mean, I feel like the dude from the Big Lebowski. I'm just not like, I'm done with this. And I get it. I mean, I'm not judging them, but I'm definitely not, I'm not there. And I'm also not seeking to find a similar thing to necessarily jump into like that. And so I'm sure I'll be processing that for a lot as well. But, but then there's stuff going on. I mean, my kids only have 3 years of high school left. And so that's a whole shift in life. So I haven't really thought through, you do a lot of things for your kids, but then the part of it is that, okay, well, they have their own free will and should be exercising their own free will. So I actually don't want to direct them. I'm not in any way saying, hey, follow in my footsteps, do this. Like, I'm not at all doing that. And, they have their own thing that they want to do. So it's like, okay, well, so let's say you build this thing in New Hampshire. It's like, so what is the assumption? Your kids are going to want to live there? Or why would you want them? Why would you think that they would want to do that? And is that even a good idea? And it's like, well, no. I'm not going to try to push them to live there. They may want to come back on their own, but anyway, that's a whole other. Yeah, let me know how your fast comes out on that, because I don't have any good. I've lost my passion. I've lost my passion for that. This is a good thing. So I didn't talk about this with fasting. Fasting not only forces you to be present, but then when the energy levels start to dissipate, you're present and focused. So then you start really chopping away at, all right, well, what is it that I, really am interested in or passionate about at this point in time? And you cut away a lot of stuff. I mean, the one thing I'll say is that what is going to come out of this once I digest it all is that I'm going to be doing different stuff, but I'm also going to be doing less. I was doing a lot. Like there was for the last 2 years, I mean, I go back and look at it and it's like, I'm at a point, like we probably have 20 interviews that I've done that I don't even remember. And we haven't posted the links or whatever. And now I don't even care. I'm not going to go bust my ass to dig this stuff up or whatever. It's like, it is what it is. It was a huge period of stuff. But like one thing I realized, like, so for this summer, I want to work on, whatever project this is that's emerging. I'm going to work on like the point of sale system or whatever. I might work on a book or two. Thinking about something related to tokenization, a short book, maybe something on fasting, but it's going to be but I do not want to travel for the entire summer. I am done, like, at least for the summer. I'm not done traveling, but I've been traveling way too much because I want to spend time with my kids. I want to play tennis with my son. I want to spend some time with my daughter because I probably only got a couple of summers left, and then they're going to be off having their own life. So I realized that. So I'm going to focus on that, and that became clear during the fast. Does it mean I'm not going to do a lot of work? No, I'll still get a lot of work done, but I understand and know what that priority is. But it is going to be different stuff. I think the cutting off of the public, engaging in the public debate stuff is going to free up a lot of time, but it's going to free up even more energy, because I did realize how toxic and negative it is to engage, even though I was engaging in it a lot during the fast, because all I had the energy to do was shitpost. It does not take a lot of energy to shitpost. So I can be in a cramped physical, position or whatever, laying in bed, and I can shitpost. I couldn't write a paragraph. I couldn't write an article. I couldn't do any coding, but sure, I could bitch about that. But nevertheless, it's not something, once I'm in a higher energy state, I'm not going to want to be doing that. So, all right, well, it's 3 hours and 30 minutes. I should figure out what time it is. I think it's 5 o'clock in the morning. So this is not great.
Amazing, Aaron. You're amazing, man. I congratulate you on this 40 days and sharing such, amazing details as well. Very educational, very informative. And you're going to help people for eons from now. They're going to come back and look at this. They're going to look up a 40-day fast, and they're going to dig into this, and it's going to find out that they're hearing a very fascinating topic, a very fascinating conversation. And who knows, something that might be almost like a time capsule. You never know.
Who knows? Well, thank you. I want to thank you both for being a part of this and being, supporters and providing input and encouragement, and, also just being awake and aware enough to engage in these concepts, because this is, I know this is a little bit out there. So, and of course, George, you've been there for forever. I think we've been through, you are definitely my oldest friend by far. And you've been around.
Well, there's a lot more coming, and you know it. So
I know
safe out there. Good luck tomorrow. Thank you, and congrats.
Thank you very much. Have a great night. Or morning, or whatever. Bye.